Right off the bat, got a crash. 40 eastbound, approaching 65 south over here on the South Loop. Police reporting that crash. Then we got one in Berry Hill, off-ramp partially blocked, 40 westbound to 65. 65 northbound after Long Hollow Pike in Goodlettsville. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hello, friends. Welcome in. It's the Matt Murphy Radio Show underway for another day. Happy to be with you. Thank you for being with us. It's 7 minutes after 3 o'clock on this Tuesday, April 22. It's Earth Day, everybody, and we'll discuss in a robust manner over the next 4 hours or so. Earth Day, a day to celebrate the Earth and everything on it.
Did you get all your Earth Day shopping done, Brother Murphy?
I most certainly did, Mr. Weaver. How about yourself?
I still got a few items.
Well, I mean, you got to get out of here early. I mean, the stores are going to close on you.
Yeah. Hopefully they've treated the roads.
Well, that's with all of that. There's all that global warming, so we should be just fine.
I'm going to celebrate tonight by having a big bowl of dirt for dinner.
Good for you. Have some Earth on Earth Day.
That was a good way to honor.
That's a nice way to do it. I remember my first experience with. Hello, everybody, and welcome in. We'll give you all the pleasantries here in a moment. I remember my first experience with Earth Day. It was on the campus of West Georgia College in Carrollton, Georgia, and when I realized that they were having an Earth Day celebration on April 22nd, I suppose it was. And I went down to the quad area to see what was up, and it was just a bunch of hippies beating on drums. And they all smelled like patchouli and pot.
Yep.
And you know what I thought to myself? I thought I could get into this Earth Day. That's pretty good. I mean, they were wailing on drums. I mean, just they had these drum circles, and they were drumming for Mother Earth or something or another.
Were they hooping and hollering?
Oh my goodness gracious! There was a bunch of hippies without any shoes on playing that hacky sack. Y'all remember hacky sack?
You got to hacky the sack.
The hippies do. They got to. You get a sack and you hacky it.
That's right.
And you get a group together, and everybody hackies on the sack. And then you pass the bowl around, and then there you go. So that was my first experience with Earth Day celebrations. I thought it was pretty good.
That's kind of what it is, isn't it?
I think that's pretty much the same deal.
Yeah.
I mean, we're destroying Mother Earth, and if we don't get together once a year and try to celebrate and keep Mother Earth sacred and in our bosom or whatever the hell, I mean, I don't really understand what we're doing with Earth Day.
Keep her sacred in our bosom.
I mean, right? I mean, we got to caress Mother Earth in the bosom of man. So, how insanely egotistical is it to suggest that man could destroy? I mean, Earth will be here when we're long gone, baby.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
in one form or fashion.
in one way or the other, Earth is going to be all right. We might kill ourselves. We might kill a bunch of other life on this planet, but I don't think we're going to bother with good old Mother Earth. We'll talk about the Earth and the climate and all of those things in celebration of Earth Day. And Tennessee's own Al Gore back in the news. How about that?
Really?
Y'all, oh, yeah. Al said that you should not. I've got the clip. It's about 2 minutes long. You should never fall into the trap of comparing anybody or anything with Adolf Hitler. And then he immediately compared Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler. But at least he's aware enough to know that he's being stupid when he does it. I don't know. Did anybody, I guess Al Gore was long gone from the state of Tennessee when you first got here, wasn't he, Weaver?
I have no idea.
I mean, yeah.
I got here in
I would think so.
2015.
Oh, yeah. So Albert, he was a congressman for a brief period of time, I guess, and then a senator for a brief period of time before ascending to the vice presidency, and he was supposed to be the president of the United States. If you stupid dunderheads in Tennessee had just voted for him, he would have been the president of the United States. But you had the audacity to vote for George W. Bush. How dare you, Tennessee?
And didn't at some point during that time, didn't he invent the internet?
He did. He did invent the internet. Al Gore. Al Gore, apparently, he was big into tobacco. I remember that speech. Where he said, I've chopped it, I've smoked it, I've hoed it, I've done all those other things to it. That was a big deal for him back in. And then he got on the climate change deal and declared in 2006 that the world was going to end in 10 years, which was, by my math, 9 years ago.
9 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Did it happen?
And
I'm not sure. Maybe it did.
Maybe it didn't. We didn't notice.
It's all a fever dream.
Maybe we're just in a real weird purgatory.
It sometimes feels that way when I have to deal with all these liberals on a daily basis, but we'll do our best. We deal with them so you don't have to on the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So we'll talk Albert and Earth Day. We'll give you the clip of him comparing the Trump administration to Adolf Hitler, which, as tired as it is, I don't know. I never get tired of it. We've got Tesla vandalism. Speaking of Earth Day, I thought Tesla was a part of the solution, not the problem, but apparently it's now part of the problem because of Elon Musk. But the vandalism will go unpunished, at least in the state of Minnesota, at least when it comes to a staffer on the payroll of Governor Tim Walz. He's not going to be punished, as far as we can tell, regarding vandalism. Here's the funniest thing about all the vandalism on the Teslas. Do these liberals not know that the Teslas have cameras? And like every Tesla, I mean, it records individual activity around the Tesla at the time. Anyway, apparently they don't know that. And apparently they're becoming intimately aware of it in those communities and states where they will actually go after them and prosecute them for the crimes committed against these Teslas, property crimes. We'll get into that today. There are some local stories we'll talk to you about, as well as a few state stories that we want to address. Two separate guests today will be discussing local and state property tax issues involving you and involving your wallet. Our second guest will be Metro Councilor Courtney Johnston. She will be in studio at 5:05 this afternoon to discuss, amongst other things, FUSIS, LPRs, why we haven't moved on either of those things, and the coming plans on the part of the Metro Council and the part of the mayor's office to raise your property taxes in Davidson County. If you live in Davidson County, or if you live in any of the surrounding counties around Davidson, you need to listen up. Because as we said yesterday, this is not only going to affect Davidson County, but I promise you this, when property taxes rise consistent with what we believe they're going to rise, I expect that there will be a flight of individuals out of Davidson County moving into the surrounding communities, because why would you want to live in a community that doesn't seem to want to remain affordable for its citizens? Beats me. So they talk out of both sides of their mouth in the mayor's office. They want, on one hand, they want affordable housing, and on the other hand, they're going to raise property taxes to increasingly make affordable housing out of reach for many people in Nashville, Tennessee. Secondarily, there is a movement afoot that has now been passed by the legislature. It is a resolution that will go to the voters in November of 2026 that will determine whether or not the state can ever level a state property tax against you. Right now, the state has that ability, although the state property tax is set at 0. If this resolution, which goes before a vote of the people, is confirmed, it will be a constitutional amendment to the Tennessee State Constitution that will prevent any future legislature from passing on state property taxes to you. That does not mean that your local communities may not still have property taxes. They will, as a matter of fact, still have property taxes, but the state will not be able to do that. We will talk with Tori Venable about that at 4:05 this afternoon. She with Americans for Prosperity. You on the phones, as always, all afternoon, 615-737-9986, 615-737-9986. You can get a hold of us either via the phone lines, and obviously there's the super text line that's always up and running and available for you. Find us on Talk Television, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. If you are a masochist in the listening audience and want to see how this performance is done visually, you may do so by going to those aforementioned platforms and like and subscribe us. If you like and subscribe on Talk TV, Ken Weaver, how much is that going to cost the folks?
Absolutely nothing, yes.
That's 0. Nada. Zilch.
You got that right, boy.
That's what it will cost you. Just give us the old thumbs up if you will, and you can find us on iHeart and Spotify and TuneIn and all of the social media platforms and apps, and take us wherever you may want to go. Let's start with Pete Hegseth. We briefly mentioned it. I briefly mentioned it yesterday. I don't know. I've been a little out of pocket, so I don't know if Chad's talked about it or Chris or Dan or. I'm certain that it's come up from time to time over the course of the live and local conversation that's been going on all day. The New York Times and Politico over the weekend issued separate hit pieces attempting to lather people up against Pete Hegseth yet again. I am not about to take the bait, and I'm not about to suggest that Donald Trump should take the bait either. The media is desperate, and there are minions within the mainstream media, in my opinion, that are desperate to get people so riled up about what is ultimately a non-story, in my estimation, that they want to convince you that it is time for Pete Hegseth to go before Pete Hegseth has truly even gotten started. We are on day 92 of 1,460 days of the Trump administration. We are on day 92 of 1,460 days of the Donald Trump second term. The New York Times story, which basically what they did is that they took the signal, they call it Signal Gate. I hesitate to do it. I'm just tired of the whole Watergate. Just stick a gate on the thing and it's this gate and that gate. I tire of it, but whatever. They basically took this Signal app story. By the way, Signal, while a concern for the National Security Agency, and while the National Security Agency signaled, no pun intended, their concern about this app, they did not disallow it for use within military circles. They have not disallowed it for use within the federal government. So there is nothing, quote unquote, illegal or inappropriate about utilizing this app as the Secretary of Defense. Now, you cannot share what is deemed to be or classified as secretive or classified information with non-classified recipients. Well, Pete Hegseth and his people say that they haven't done that. But essentially, because the story didn't stick the first time around, it was apparently Mike Walls who accidentally included the Atlantic editor-in-chief on the application. There was never a suggestion that the other people involved in the conversation were not allowed to receive the information. There was always an underlying suggestion upon the liberal mainstream media that it was inappropriate to use this platform to talk about the things they were talking about. Inappropriate. Not illegal, inappropriate. And that's fine. I mean, different people can have different opinions about that. Obviously, it was in error that a reporter was allowed on the chat. And that's obviously something that needed to be repaired by the Trump administration. But the fault there lied with Mike Waltz, not with Pete Hegseth. But for some reason, the mainstream media decided that Pete Hegseth was the guy that they wanted to go after. And so they did. Well, this new article that appeared over the weekend was essentially a throwback to the old article. They took the old article, they took the old story, which was a non-scandal then, and they dumped it in the microwave and they heated it up again and they recirculated it, right? They gave us leftovers. Oh, Pete Hegseth hasn't learned his lesson. Oh, Pete Hegseth is still using the Signal app. Oh, it was a group chat created by Hegseth, which included his wife and his brother and his personal lawyer among a group of defense leaders in which he supposedly shared information related to the United States military. In the Politico piece, so that was the New York Times piece. In the Politico piece, it was an op-ed by a fellow who said he resigned from his role in the Pentagon because the Defense Department under Pete Hegseth is in, and I'm quoting now, total chaos. Weber, would you look up the word chaos? Would you mind? Would you mind doing that for me? Because, you see, I think sometimes these people use these words, and I don't think these words mean what they say that they mean or what they think that they mean. And but it sounds very damning, and it sounds scandalous, and it sounds like a real issue for the administration. This fella whose name I cannot pronounce, John Olyott, said that the piece said that there was a full-blown meltdown going on at the Defense Department, one that's becoming, quote, a real problem for the administration. He called March a month from hell and talked about a, quote, near collapse inside of the Pentagon's top ranks. Chaos means, Mr. Weber?
Complete disorder and confusion.
So is there complete disorder and confusion? Or are maybe these leftist media types being a little bit hyperbolic in their language? You think? A little bit crazy in their language? I, for one, have seen no evidence that there is, quote, total chaos within the Department of Defense outside of several, quote, whistleblowers who seem to be disgruntled over the fact that they were asked to leave their offices and take the crap that's theirs and never come home or never come back again. Go on home. We shall discuss a little more in depth coming up in just a moment. Take your calls and thoughts on it. 615-737-9986. Just getting underway. Happy Earth Day, everybody, on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy to talk to you for a moment about the organization Men of Valor. Men of Valor is a wonderful group of individuals that are going into our prison system in the state of Tennessee, sitting down with individuals, volunteering to minister directly to the incarcerated by way of Bible study, discipleship group, chapel service, concerts, classes on manhood, all of which designed to do one thing, that is create better men as they leave the prison system. Did you know over 90% of the men within our prison system in the state of Tennessee, they will get out at some point in their lives? What type of men do you want coming out of those walls? Do you want individuals that are going to commit again, or people who are becoming givers rather than takers within their community? That's what it's all about. Meaningful change in these men's lives that can lead to good and gainful employment and non-recidivism. That's what it's all about with Men of Valor. Will you join them? Go to movministry.com. That's movministry.com to find out how you can assist these wonderful folks with Men of Valor, either through volunteerism or through your donations. That's movministry.com.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
DEI policies just a signature away from going away in Tennessee local governments, colleges, and universities. This story and others coming up at 3:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I believe that there's an RFK press conference that's just concluded or going on right now. A couple of you on the Super Text line asked me about it. We were not planning on jipping that live. That would be joining it in progress live, JIP. At the same time, RFK Jr. is set to announce, apparently, the phasing out of artificial food dyes in the United States. That was at least the plan for the Director of Health and Human Services at his press conference today. The suggestion was that HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was preparing to announce a ban on artificial food dyes, according to a statement by the Health Department. Kennedy planning on phasing out petroleum-based synthetic dyes, which are present in numerous foods such as breakfast, cereal, candy, snacks, and beverages.
Ice cream.
Some studies have linked these dyes to some neurological problems in children. No exact timeline established, but we're awaiting details on this ban. Ice cream, you say, Ken?
Yeah, ice cream included.
So why don't we just ban sugar in food? Isn't that bad for us? Isn't refined sugar bad for us?
That's what I hear.
Well, wait a minute now.
So
let's not be hasty.
Here's the deal. I want maximum information available to consumers. At the same time, my standard has never wavered nor changed. That I own me, and I get to determine what I consume. I don't want a government that's big enough to tell a company that they can't put an artificial dye in food, because that same government gets to tell you what you get to eat and what you get to drink and what you can't eat, what you can't drink. That's not conservative government. That's not small government. So I understand y'all don't like all of this stuff. You don't have to eat all of this stuff. Nobody's forcing you to eat any of this stuff.
Read the label.
Why do you want the government? No, some of the same people that are advocating and giving a thumbs up to Robert F. Kennedy declaring that the government is going to ban certain food items from your available consumption, those same folks didn't want to have nutrition labels on the food because he said that was too big a government. Well, we like the nutrition. I mean, I remember when the mandate for nutrition labels came down some 20 or so years ago. And I remember how upset people were. That's not the government's business. It's not their business to tell me what I got. I don't need to see the calorie count on my food. Well, I kind of like knowing what the ingredients are. I kind of like being able to read exactly what I'm consuming. And I kind of like being able to make my own decisions. So I understand that it might go against some of you that, you feel like RFK can do no wrong on this. I just don't like the idea that government's big enough to tell me what I can and cannot consume. That's what it's all about. Now, look, in no way am I suggesting these food dyes are good for you. I don't think smoking cigarettes are good for you either. Should the government ban that too? Maybe we should ban alcohol. Maybe we should have the government determine everything that it's going to decide is good or bad for us. I mean, I know that I'm coming off kind of snotty, but is that not where all of this leads? Be careful, because the next Health and Human Services, remember when, who was it, Bloomberg decided he wanted to ban sugary sodas in New York? Oh, sugary sodas. That's the problem. Keeping us obese. Maybe we ought to ban food stamps. Maybe that would get us skinnier. Speaking of, do you know we're the only country? Well, I want to get on this subject because our poorest citizens are our most obese citizens. And part of the reasons is it's so cheap to produce some of this really fattening food. More on that coming up. Your telephone calls as well. If you disagree with me, you go to the front of the line. It's 30 after the hour on Super Talk.
$3:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. And right now in Tennessee, DEI policies will be prohibited under a bill headed for Governor Lee's desk, which he can sign into law. The dismantled DEI Act says local governments, schools, and universities cannot base hiring or admissions on race, sex, religion, age, or disability. Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr. going to call on food manufacturers today to phase out the use of 8 dyes in our food supply. The announcement aimed at targeting artificial dyes used in cereal, ice cream, snacks, yogurts, and more. comes after studies suggest the dyes could be harmful. Here's ABC News medical correspondent Dr. Darian Sutton.
There are some studies that show with animal products, for example, animal studies that show that these dyes can be associated with cancer. But the FDA maintains we have not seen these associations within humans. But it's important to note that there are other studies that show that there might be increased risk to children.
More than 5 million Americans whose student loans are in default are now less than 2 weeks away from having those loans sent to collections. Alex Brichet with more from the Department of Education.
It's kind of sweeping here in terms of, how the Treasury Department will be looking at mechanisms to get some of that money back. They're talking about first looking at things like tax refunds and other maybe federal incomes, but then after a 30-day period, they will potentially garnish wages.
Oregon Congresswoman Maxine Dexter among 4 Democratic members of Congress who just left El Salvador, where they're saying they were on a quest for answers about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Salvadoran man arrested in Maryland and deported last month for being here illegally and alleged ties to the MS-13 gang.
The most important thing that this trip accomplished is keeping this story and the constitutional crisis. It really illustrates front and center. This is one man and family's nightmare, but it could be anyone's.
Meanwhile, in Tennessee, the Tennessee Star says it's still seeking answers to why in 2022 the Biden FBI told the Tennessee Highway Patrol to let Garcia, who didn't have a valid driver's license, and his 8 passengers go free from a 2-hour traffic stop that raised suspicion of human trafficking. Tennessee Star says it has also learned that Garcia, for some reason, added more than 300 miles and 7 hours of driving to that trip from Texas to Maryland by stopping in St. Louis. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Police reporting a crash blocking the left shoulder, 65 southbound at Trinity Lane. Over on the West End, police say there's a crash, 440 eastbound past West End Avenue, exit 1. And the crash on 440 westbound off-ramp to 65, partially blocking the off-ramp there, TDOT reporting. In Goodlettsville, police reporting a crash 65 northbound after Long Hollow Pike, exit 97. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, folks, listen up. I'm telling you, it is important to your health and your well-being to talk about the Wellness Institute of Nashville. I know I've made the switch, and I encourage you to do this as well. No pills or no spinal creams that will open up the spinal disc to take pressure off your nerves. You either have surgery or you have non-surgical procedures to open that spinal disc. I take the non-surgical approach at the Wellness Center or the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley are the experts in this non-surgical spinal decompression, and it alleviates the pain associated with this spinal disc situation. Bottom line is this. If you're in pain in your lower back, if you're in pain anywhere on your body, the possibility exists that you could have that pain alleviated through non-surgical spinal decompression. And right now, it could never be cheaper because they have their big 47% off sale in celebration of our 47th president of the United States of America, the big 47 offer in 2025. Call today and schedule that appointment that so many others have scheduled to the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Call 615-246-5009. 246-5009 or go to painisbad.com. My name is Matt Murphy, and I put my seal of approval on the Wellness Institute of Nashville. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Matt Murphy. This is the Matt Murphy Radio Show. Thank you for being around with us on this Tuesday edition. Episode number 794 of our visits together. 794. I am joined by Chris Weber behind the glass, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as possible. Ken Weaver's back in the newsroom. He gathers headlines constantly, delivers them twice an hour or when news breaks. Apparently, I've struck a nerve with some of you. The press conference is ongoing right now. I believe if I'm on the live feed, and I think I am, apparently Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will be joined by FDA Commissioner Martin McCary.
Well, I saw him speaking earlier.
A little bit earlier.
Yeah.
All right. So this is ongoing. So if there's any news being made from these platforms, we will let you know. But the bottom line is this. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is unveiling a plan to remove 8 petroleum-based synthetic dyes from the country's food supply. Latest move in his pursuit to, quote, make America healthy again. The move comes months after the Food and Drug Administration banned the use of controversial red dye from food and ingested drugs that have been linked to cancer. I am hesitant to agree that the government should utilize its power to ban your ability to consume certain things that you want to consume or to manufacture certain things that you want to manufacture. Now, several of you are asking, 7362 is a good example on the Super Text line. You're welcome to call and comment if you disagree particularly, 615-737-9986. Although I would normally agree with you, at some point we have to govern some things. I guess we should just legalize everything, right, 7362. Let the law of the jungle, buyer beware. And several of you have made this point. You have to you have a point with the smaller government, but this is an issue that can't be separated from certain types of food, like with alcohol. They put artificial dyes in almost everything. And then this. So should we not have government inspecting food for safety either? Which way do you want it? No regulation or limited regulations for safety purposes? I do not believe in no regulation. We live in a civilized society. I use the example all the time, and I think it's the easiest one to bring back up. I want my government there in places and doing things that it would not be reasonable for the average citizen to do, meaning to inspect the safety and the cleanliness of a food manufacturing facility. It is not reasonable for me to be able to go to the Fruit Loops plant and inspect and make sure that they're making the Fruit Loops in a way that would be consistent with what I would want to eat, right? It's not reasonable for every restaurant that I walk into for me to expect that I'll be able to look in the kitchen area of the restaurant. If every customer tried to look into the kitchen area to make sure that they're not storing food improperly or whatever, it would be chaos. It would be, actual chaos, not the type of chaos that the New York Times talks about. So we empower our government to act as an agent on our behalf in those regards, whether it's inspection of manufacturing facilities or the inspection of the kitchen areas in restaurants. We ask our government, elected by us, hey, empower somebody to go in here and make sure that they're doing everything on the up and up. That's what health inspections are all about. Whether these are health and safety inspections at the Fruit Loops plant or health and safety inspections in the kitchen of a given restaurant. It is different to suggest that that is appropriate and to suggest that it is appropriate for the government to ban something wholesale based on its belief that it is bad for you. Well, that is a little more of a gray area. What I want is an informed public. I want you as a grown-up to have the ability to determine what you want to consume and what you don't want to consume. I do want the government to be there to make sure that if there is a product that's being sold, if you want to suggest to me that the government should force manufacturers to note on their products that they use artificial dyes, okay, I'm fine with that. In other words, there's something on the product somewhere that denotes that there is the use of artificial dyes in this product, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Much like the Surgeon General's warning on a package of cigarettes. That's fine. that is an informed public. And if I continue to consume that product after the knowledge that that product has whatever it has in it, that's up to me. It's not up to the government. As soon as the government goes down this trail, they're not, I mean, why would the government stop? I mean, is it so much of a ridiculous notion to suggest that Robert F. Kennedy wouldn't go next to refined sugar? Refined sugar is not good for you. I mean, adding refined sugar in so many of these products results in negative health consequences. I'm on, he's talking right now on my monitor. Do you have him up? Let's jip some of this while we're talking about it, considering he's up.
About $1.8 trillion annually is bankrupting our nation. 74% of American kids cannot qualify for military service. Oh, how are we going to maintain our global leadership with such a sick population? We have all these autoimmune diseases, these exotic diseases. And again, I never heard of juvenile diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, Crohn's disease, and 100 others that were just unknown when I was a kid. I never knew anybody with a peanut allergy. I never knew anybody with a food allergy. Why do 5 of my 7 kids have allergies? I never knew of anybody who had eczema. I knew of a very small number of children who had asthma, but that has exploded as well today. And our fertility is dropping dramatically. Teenagers in this country today have the same testosterone levels as 68-year-old men. Our girls are reaching puberty 6 years early, from 10 to 14 years old. And this is existential for our country. And we have to address it. And one of the problems, when I met with, and I want to commend the food companies for working with us to achieve this agreement or this settlement. And when I went in a few months or about a month ago to meet with the food companies, I was talking with my staff about these petroleum-based dyes, and I said if they want to add petroleum, they want to eat petroleum, they ought to add it themselves at home. But they shouldn't be feeding it to the rest of us. And without our knowledge or consent. And unfortunately, we're going to get rid of the dyes, and then one by one, we're going to get rid of every ingredient and additive in food that we can legally address. One of the problems is that the industry, which all of these industries, cast a dark shadow historically over this agency. And there's so many conflicts that we are now systematically eliminating. That has allowed them to suppress the science. There's shockingly few studies, even on food dyes, and on all these other ingredients as well. And Jay Bhattacharya, who is here and who's running the director of NIH, is now narrowly targeting these kind of food additives for scientific study, so that one by one we can start eliminating them where they can. Where we can't, there's things that we'll never be able to eliminate, like sugar. And sugar is poison. And Americans need to know that. It is poisoning us.
Sugar's poisonous. He just said what I said.
When I was a kid, I always say this. A typical pediatrician would see 1 case of diabetes in his lifetime. Today, it's 1 out of every 3 kids who walks through his office door. In our most recent study from NIH, 38% of American teens, it's half our adult population. This is existential. We are spending as much on mitochondrial disorders like diabetes as we spend on our military budget. We can't continue to exist like this. And the problem is industry is making money on keeping us sick. As Jay pointed out, ADHD is associated with all these behavioral disorders. But those disorders are treated not by changing our diet, providing medications to treat our kids. And they get medicated and medicated, and that's the only solution. And, I would point out that there is part of the etiology of these diseases is a kind of media malpractice, a mass psychosis that has our media not talking about this. And one of the possible reasons for that is the amount of money that's coming from the pharmaceutical companies into our media and from these food companies, or the advertising. And the advertising has at least plays a factor. So that revenue, that extraordinary revenue stream, in disabling their capacity or their inclination for skepticism and for critical thinking. So Americans don't know what they're eating, and they don't know the implications of those things. And for those products, Mark Hyman says in his book, the 10-day sugar detox diet, which I'll give a plug to, is a very good book. He talks about how dangerous sugar is and how it's as addictive as crack. And our children are addicted to it from when they're little kids. Our agency recommends, I think, a huge amount of sugar for kids from when they're born. And it's hurting them, and it's addicting them, and it's changing their taste buds so that they crave it. And it's disabling our population. So for those ingredients that we can't ban legally, we're going to start informing Americans about what they're eating. And we're going to try to work with Congress and the White House to make sure that we have adequate labeling so mothers who go into the grocery stores know what is good for their children and what is not. I want to say one other thing about the moms. When I went and spoke for the first time, and I met with the heads of all the food industry companies, one of the things that they said to us is that the worst thing for us is if we have a patchwork of legislation in all these different states, because then we're not capable of marketing nationally distributed products, because we're going to have different regulations in every state. And they didn't want that, and that's one of the reasons they came to the table with us. I want to thank Speaker Schultz, and I want to thank Governor Morrissey, and I visited many other governors in Virginia and West Virginia, in Arizona and Utah, and other states that are banned, that are having these local bans. But those bans have given us leverage to make demands on the food company, and the only reason that those states have banned these products is because of these ladies and millions of more across the country, the warrior moms who have powered the MAHA movement.
All right, so RFK is currently speaking. He's announcing the banning of 8 separate food additive dyes. Talked about sugar, as we've talked about, saying that that's not something that he can do on his own, but I don't have a problem with labeling. Because I do think the kids are addicted to sugar. It's 52 after the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Back in a moment. There are a lot of diagnoses out there. We were just talking about the Health and Human Services Director. There's seemingly a pill for everything. Sadly, not all diagnoses are accurate, and not all diagnoses that you get for your European automobile will be accurate either. So if you need a second opinion, or I would encourage you to make this your first opinion, let's get to Eurofix. Before you spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars on European vehicle repair from a diagnosis, go to Eurofix and get a free 15-minute no-wrench inspection. They're not going to try to sell you anything. They're just diagnosing what is up with your vehicle, and it could save you a lot of stress that ruins your weekend or ruins your week. It can save you a lot of hassle and ultimately a lot of money. At Eurofix, you get that free 15-minute no-wrench inspection. You never get a high-pressure sales tactics. At Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. At Eurofix, you never pay dealer prices. Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now in Mount Juliet. Call 844-EUROFIX. That's 844-EUROFIX, or visit myeurofix.com and tell them Matt Murphy sent you.
For many of us, generators are becoming a must-have household appliance. From unpredictable weather to surprise outages, it's better to be safe than sorry. Generator Supercenter of Nashville offers fast and easy installations with 24/7 service and monitoring to all brands of generators and expert repairs done right. Our mission is to make owning a backup generator simple and easy. Visit your local store today or check us out online. Generator Supercenter of Nashville. We serve all Middle Tennessee.
Tennessee, just a signature away from banning DEI in local governments, universities, and colleges. And the Trump administration just announced a new task force focused on prosecuting bias, violence, and vandalism against Christianity. These stories and more at 4 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken Weaver. It's 58 after the hour. Coming up after the top of the hour news, which is coming up in just moments. Tori Venables will be with us. She is with the Americans for Prosperity group, and she will discuss the possibility of eliminating the possible property tax, state property tax in the state of Tennessee. We'll discuss that coming up in just a few moments. Kathy writes in and says, Matt, how can something look more like hardwood than hardwood? And I don't know what that means, and I don't know what I've done to deserve that question. Did I say something stupid? Probably.
I think there was probably an ad that she heard.
Oh, yeah. It looks more like hardwood than hardwood.
Just guessing. I don't know.
Maybe so. We were just listening to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I would go back to that, but he is done speaking before the American people, announcing that he plans on phasing out 8 synthetic dyes by 2026. Made a couple of comments about sugar, how he would like to go after the sugar industry, but he is realistic about his ability to do that. Look, I'm not suggesting that it is not a good idea for you to not consume these synthetic dyes. What I am suggesting is that a government big enough to ban certain food products can ban other food products, and at some point, you might disagree with it. At some point, the government will dictate to you what you're allowed to consume and what you're not allowed to consume, and I don't know that that's a government. I don't know. I'm just here. I'm just here for the show, folks. I'm just warning you that when it becomes a moment where it interferes with your ability to live your life in a manner of your choosing, you're probably not going to like it that much. Just a thought. Just a thought for consumption. It's a 1 hour down, 3 to go. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Four o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes right now in Tennessee. Over at the State House, a bill is headed to Governor Lee, which he can sign into law, which says local governments, universities, and colleges cannot use DEI policies for hiring and admissions. Another bill that has passed the House and headed to the state Senate says TennCare doctors cannot refuse patients who are not vaccinated, any vaccination. And in our nation's capital, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. just announced artificial dyes are going to be phased out of the U.S. food supply.
We're going to get rid of the dyes, and then one by one, we're going to get rid of every ingredient and additive to school in food that we can legally address.
He's calling for an end to 8 synthetic food dyes by the end of next year. Justice Department launching a task force to investigate claims of anti-Christian bias during the Biden administration. Attorney General Pam Bondi.
The Department of Justice will protect religious liberty for Christians and for all Americans.
That includes defending Christianity in spaces like schools, workplaces, and government. The task force drew criticism from Americans United for Separation of Church and State, which says it's just an excuse for bigotry, discrimination, and civil rights violations. Trump administration announcing an end to student loan bailouts. Here's White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt today.
On May 5th, the Department of Education will resume involuntary collections for borrowers with defaulted federal student loans. The student loan portfolio controlled by the federal government is nearly $1.6 trillion. But fewer than 4 out of 10 borrowers are in repayment. This is unsustainable, unfair, and a huge liability for American taxpayers.
4 more Democratic Congress members just left El Salvador, where they claimed they were seeking answers about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Salvadoran arrested in Maryland and deported for being here illegally and alleged ties to the MS-13 gang. This is Oregon Congresswoman Maxine Dexter.
This is one man and family's nightmare, but it could be anyone's.
Meanwhile, here in Tennessee, the Tennessee Star reports it has yet to learn from the FBI or hear from the FBI why, during the Biden era or administration, the FBI directed the Tennessee Highway Patrol to let Garcia and his 8 passengers go free, even though Garcia was driving on an expired license from Maryland and troopers suspected human trafficking. Furthermore, the Tennessee Star says it has learned Garcia had gone 300 miles and more than 7 hours out of his way to stop in St. Louis while he was driving from Texas to Maryland. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, TDOT is showing a disabled vehicle is blocking the southbound left lane of 65 right there before the 24 split. Just north of downtown. Elsewhere, police reporting a crash over on the west end, 440 eastbound past exit 1. And in Antioch, got a stalled vehicle. The off-ramp partially blocked, 24 eastbound to Haywood Lane. Also, 24 westbound on-ramp from Hickory Hollow Parkway. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is the Matt Murphy Show, Super Talk 99.7 WTN, 7 minutes after 4 o'clock. Thank you for being around with us. I've upset some of you regarding my take on food dyes. Look, I'm not, once again, I just want to make sure that everybody's clear on my position here. I'm not in favor of food dyes, nor am I against food dyes. I am suggesting that a government that has the ability to ban these types of products in your food can ban other types of products in your food as well. And at some point, everybody's got a line to draw in the sand somewhere. And for me, I own me, and I should be able to consume that which I desire to consume. I just want informed consent. In other words, I want to make sure that I know what's in my food before I consume whatever's in the food. But we thank you for being out there. 615-737-9986. If you'd like to be a part of the show, 615-737-9986. And we welcome back to the show, speaking of being a part of the show, from Americans for Prosperity, Tori Venable joins us in studio to talk about the legislative session that is soon to be over. I'm very excited. I'm always excited when the ne'er-do-wells in the General Assembly get on home and leave us alone for another calendar year. Hello, Tori. How are you?
Hello, Matt. And I don't think you could possibly be more excited than I am.
I bet. How long do you? I mean, you're down there all the time, aren't you?
I mean,
during the session?
Only Tuesdays and Wednesdays, the busy committee days when most of the action happens.
Well, we've got some exciting news, obviously, to come out of the General Assembly. I feel like it's been a fairly good session, fairly. I mean, I don't want to say drama-free. There's always a little bit of drama, especially George. I've noticed in my short time in the state of Tennessee that the liberal Democrats like to make a fuss, especially right at the end of the session, just to get a little FaceTime on television, it seems.
They like to say all their talking points all at once. Hopefully somebody will listen.
Well, not me. I try to give them as little oxygen as humanly possible.
Yeah, same.
So, I mean, if I asked you an assessment of the general session, I don't want to exclude the special because, I mean, that's probably, in your opinion, the biggest lift of the year, would it not be?
Yeah, and the biggest deal for us in a decade. So that was the best thing. I got to say, from my tenure as a state director, when I started as state director for AFP in 2018, this is probably our most successful legislative session since 2018.
Mm-hmm. And most of that comes from the education scholarship?
So school choice, we knocked out almost all of our entire legislative agenda that we set forth at the beginning of things that we said we wanted to get done. And because we got school choice done in a special session, we were able to take on a bunch of other things that secured property rights or protected Tennesseans' constitutional rights, things that we just care about generally, but were not top of our priority list.
For those that don't know about AFP and your kind of organizational purpose, remind us what it is.
Here at Americans for Prosperity, we fight for lower taxes, less government, more freedom, and better education. We empower grassroots to have their voices heard and make a difference on public policy so that they can pursue the American dream.
I almost feel like you've said that before.
Might have.
Once or twice. So outside of, and where are we on before I go past it, in terms of the Education Freedom Scholarship Fund, and I mangle the name every time I say it, we are prepping the website and getting ready for people to apply for the scholarships?
Yep,
correct?
applications are supposed to go live in May. It's a matter of, is it May 1st? Is it May 15th? I think we're all like waiting on pins and needles to find out when the application is going to drop. But it seems like everything's ready and in place. I know there's private schools doing informational settings with the Department of Education. We're doing other education meetings so that people know what they need to bring to apply. And we think that we'll fully fulfill the 20,000 scholarships in the first year.
And the possibility exists, if that occurs, that this could grow in subsequent years, right?
Yeah, by 5,000 each year.
Right. What outside of that is the biggest success, in your opinion, during the General Assembly?
So I'd have to say it's actually the constitutional amendment to ban a statewide property tax. And it's such a barrier to change our Constitution. So it had to pass last session by simple majority, this session by 2/3 majority, and now it goes to the voters. It's passed 2/3. And it goes to the voters in November of 26 to forever ban a statewide statewide property tax, just like we did the income tax.
And is that how it happened? Because I wasn't here for the income tax debate, and obviously there was an incredible amount of protest, and Super Talk 99.7 was intimately involved,
Right.
Phil Valentine and Pamela and all those. But is that how it happened, that ultimately it went to the voters and the voters said, no, we're not going to consider this ever again?
So we had a former Republican governor that tried to pass a state income tax, and that's what started the process for us to amend our Constitution to forever ban it, just like we're doing with the statewide property tax.
I kind of dig the way that they do it in the state of Tennessee. I know that it's a heavy lift, but I like the idea of making sure that the voters are well aware and that the elected officials fully understand the significance, the heft of changing our Tennessee Constitution, to the point that, as Tori just mentioned, the first reading in a session has to be a simple majority reading, and then it has to come back again the next year, and it has to be a 2/3 majority reading, just to make sure that nobody was confused last time around. We're going to do it this again, and it seems like a little bit of an overkill, but I like it.
With an election in between also.
Right.
So between the years, there has to be an election in between, and it goes on a statewide ballot. So, I mean, yeah, we shouldn't take amending our Constitution lightly. So this is one of those things that we can do to protect future generations of Tennesseans.
It might be a little confusing for the layman, in as much as when we pay property taxes every year, we're not really paying state property taxes.
Correct.
Explain that to the folks.
All right, so you're paying property taxes at the local or city level. That's not going to change with this constitutional amendment. But because before Tennessee was a sales tax state, I think it was 1949, they did levy a statewide property tax. They brought that to zero and switched it out for the sales tax. But because it's still in our Constitution, all it would take is one vote in the legislature, and they could levy a statewide property tax on top of your local property taxes that you're currently paying now. So we are closing the door, and we're forever banning that. There's a lot of work to do on the local property taxes as well. This does not affect the local property taxes at all.
Well, and it's gotten a lot of conversation. We're going to have a good conversation with Courtney Johnston with the Metro Council about it in the 5 o'clock hour, because obviously Davidson County residents are concerned that their property tax rates are about to go up.
They should be concerned.
The evaluation, the assessment has just gone up. It was 45% on average. And that can be in and of itself a little bit confusing too.
Yeah.
Because the state tries to protect the property tax payer in as much as they try to zero out the rates if there are assessment increases. Can you explain this in a way that, I mean, I know it's difficult to explain, but what the state is attempting to do, in my estimation, is to prevent local municipalities from popping the property taxpayer with a huge bill year over year.
So what we have is truth in taxation. It passed in, I think, the 70s. We're one of 3 states that has the gold level plan of truth in taxation. So when they do their property tax reappraisals, when they say your property is worth more or less money, which they do on typically about a 4-year cycle, when that would automatically raise what you're paying in property taxes because they're saying your property's worth more. Well, with truth in taxation, they have to do what is called a certified tax rate because local governments are not allowed to take in additional revenue. It has to be revenue neutral from the reappraisals. So they lower the tax rate. It automatically happens. The tax rate has to automatically be lowered so that they cannot get a windfall just because property values went up. But cities like Nashville, liberal cities across our great state, 30% of the time, they do not adopt the certified tax rate, and they use this as an opportunity to raise taxes even further.
Well, at very least, they're forced to actually raise the rate. I mean, and what I look at it as is it's designed to force local municipalities not to hide behind reassessments.
Correct.
In terms of raising revenue. Because otherwise, they would say, hey, we don't have anything. I mean, we don't have anything to do with the reassessment. We don't have anything to do with the fact that, a year ago your property was valued at $200,000. Now it's valued at $250,000. That's the assessor. Hey, but we'll take the extra money that comes along with that reassessment. Instead of that, they have to affirmatively zero it out, and then they have to go to the taxpayers at very least and say, we're raising your tax rates, which is the expectation on the part of Davidson County, I believe.
Yeah, it's an important transparency piece. And, if Nashvillians don't want their property taxes raised, now's the time to start reaching out to your Metro Council members and the mayor's office and tell them that you want them to cut spending instead of raising your taxes.
Well, or just spend at a level that they spent last year. I mean, it's not even – so there will be plenty of those Metro councilors, and Courtney Johnston's not one of them. She'll explain this to you. There are plenty of those counselors that will try to lie to you and tell you we're just getting it back to where it was. That's what they'll say. We're just getting it back to where it was. They're not. The Truth in Taxation Act gets it back to where it was. Correct. That's what that does. What this does is raise your rates if they go up on the property taxes this year, which is the expectation that Freddie O'Connell will do.
Well, the big thing is figuring out whether or not they're going to adopt the certified tax rate or not. If they adopt the certified tax rate, Truth in Taxation has worked. Taxpayers are protected. If they bump it up, then they've raised your taxes.
What else? Outside of that, you mentioned right before we came on the civil asset forfeiture, which is, it's very nerdy, and I understand that it seems very nerdy, but it's very, very important to stop the encroach of government from your private property. Explain it to folks.
So for those of you with a libertarian streak, you're going to love this, right? I know that's probably why Matt is on the same page as me on this one. So what happens is in Tennessee and many states across the nation, you can have your property taken by law enforcement even if they are not charging you with a crime. It's a civil action. They essentially are charging your property with being guilty. And because it's civil and not criminal, you don't have the same rights afforded to you. So in Tennessee, if you had, say, some cash or your grandfather's gun or a car or something seized that you were an innocent person in this and you wanted to get it back, you would have to pay $350 per item to have your day in court and have your constitutional due process. So now that $350 bond is gone, because let me tell you, guilty people are not signing up to go into court and reveal evidence against themselves. But innocent people absolutely are going to challenge when they have their stuff taken by the government.
And you don't get that money back. I mean, the $350 is just it's considered to be court fees or whatever.
Yeah, gone.
And so literally in civil asset forfeiture cases, if a police officer pulls you over and you have a large amount of cash on you, for example, if you're going to buy a vehicle or whatever, it doesn't matter. If they seize that cash for whatever suspicious reasons, then you have to affirmatively prove your innocence, which goes against the basic construct of our judicial system that you ought not have to do that the government is required to demonstrate your guilt as opposed to you demonstrating your innocence. In this case, that's the way it's always been, and you're saying that we've gotten something passed where you don't have to pay that $350?
You don't have to pay the bond to have your day in court. So you can challenge if you have your property unjustly taken, and you can challenge and, have your day in court and not pay $350 per item. For a lot of folks, it's not even worth challenging because the item that was taken is going to cost you, it is worth far less than the $350 and the attorney that you're going to have hire to have your day in court.
How often do we think this goes on in the state?
According to the fiscal note, to the tune of $167,000 a year coming out of Tennesseans' pockets. So that's, if you just counted that as one item per person, that's 455 Tennesseans per year that have had to pay this bond. And so this is going to be protecting their constitutional rights. We would love to get to criminal asset forfeiture. Hey, if someone's guilty of a crime, take their stuff, okay? Sure. And you've proved they're guilty. We are 100% for criminal asset forfeiture. But if you're talking about civil asset forfeiture where you're not even charging the individual with a crime, that's a real problem.
Question for Ms. Venable, and by the way, you can get your questions in, 615-737-9986. I am a 65-plus senior enrolled in Davidson County Property Tax Freeze Program. Mm-hmm. If the statewide property tax passes, would there be a potential statewide program for those of us on fixed incomes?
So the statewide property tax is a constitutional amendment. So once this is going to the ballot, there's not going to be a chance for them to pass a statewide property tax. So they'll be protected either way. They want to make sure that this is something that they vote yes for in November of 2026 to make sure that there's never a statewide property tax, but it will not affect their local property taxes at all whatsoever.
We'll have Tori for another segment. Stand by. It's 21 after the hour. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Back after this. I want to talk to you for a moment about my friend Shane Ring at Cover Nash, located right here in Middle Tennessee. He is in Brentwood, as a matter of fact, a local expert when it comes to not only opting into health coverage and health plans, but also becoming educated on what plan you currently have and what that is offering you in terms of coverage and how much you should really be paying for that plan itself. Now, Shane does not work for any particular insurance company. Quite the contrary. He works for you. Oftentimes it is the case when a company is out there shopping their insurance plan to you, they are working for that insurance company. That means that you're not their customer. The insurance is their customer ultimately, but they want you as a customer at Shane Ring and Cover Nash, meaning without being a call center agent and with the ability to shop every plan on the market today, they can specifically find the one that's right for you, and they can access in real time the real costs of medical procedures so they can comparison shop and show you exactly what type of coverage you're getting and why you should go with a particular group or coverage. Shane Ring and Cover Nash. Sit down with him today, and he can explain it all for you. 615-465-0023. That's 465-0023. Or go to covernash.com. Once again, covernash.com. Tell Shane Ring I sent you to Cover Nash.
2 more bills headed for the governor's desk, which he can sign into law here in Tennessee. Coming up at 4:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I love the Babylon Bee. You know, my position on the government's role in banning food dyes notwithstanding, the Babylon Bee headline, just fresh off the RFK press conference, Democrats begin chugging artificial food dye to protest RFK. Absolutely love it. It's got a picture of Elizabeth Warren and AOC just chugging some sort of pink liquid. We're with Tori Venable with Americans for Prosperity. A number of you asking questions on the super text line, and please, by all means, get them in. And as a matter of fact, Steve out of Kingston Springs has a question. You'll have to slip those on, Tori. Watch that water and slip those headphones on as we talk with Steve, who is up next with a question for Tori Venable. Hello, Steve. Good afternoon.
Hi, Steve.
Thank you. I am a public school teacher, and I'm curious if the state legislature is going to cancel the end of course tests.
I don't believe that they're canceling the end of course tests. I don't think that that was part of the education freedom accounts at all. I do know that they are looking at changing what kind of tests they are doing, but they were allowing private schools to take any nationally norm recognized test. I think we would follow suit soon, if that's working well, for public schools to be able to do the same thing.
Okay. Hey, thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
Absolutely, Steve. Thank you. 4524 writes in and says, I wish you that you knew exactly how civil asset forfeiture worked. There's a very good process. There's a seizure form. There's a receipt and an affidavit that's filed in criminal court of record in the county in which it was seized. And then it's filed with the state, and the state then sets a date for civil asset forfeiture. Most people don't take grandpa's gun. That's a ridiculous argument. Any response?
Well, anytime you violate someone's constitutional rights, that is a ridiculous argument. So, I mean, we want to make sure people's constitutional rights are protected. If we really wanted to make sure that seizures were going the way they were supposed to, they would just send the money to the general fund instead of to the agency that's taking the property from Tennesseans. So, or we would say you don't actually forfeit the property until you've been criminally convicted. You could seize it, but you don't actually forfeit the property until conviction.
Right, and add to that the idea that I have to affirmatively pay money that I never get back, even if it's determined that I have done nothing wrong and I get my property back in the civil case. I never get that money back. And so I have to pay right now $350 in order to demonstrate my innocence in court. And I just disagree with that. I disagree with having to affirmatively pay that money to demonstrate your innocence.
And because it's civil court, the difference is it's not even clear and convincing evidence or beyond a reasonable doubt like criminal court would be. They just have to think that you more likely than not got the asset from some kind of criminal means. And that means that they don't even have to charge you with a crime. So that's the problem, really, with civil asset forfeiture. It should be criminal asset forfeiture. Absolutely. If you catch someone with drugs, guns, like you catch someone doing something wrong and you're charging them with a crime, you're going to convict them in a court of law, it should run absolutely parallel to it. But it's the civil part that is a violation of people's, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, quite a few amendments. So we just don't want that to continue.
I agree wholeheartedly, and my libertarian streak runs wide with that. So once again, I get a message from Allison saying, thanks for asking the question, Matt. I may have confused you. If there becomes a statewide property tax, it's my concern regarding the ability to freeze my liability at zero. Okay, so just to clarify, there is a constitutional amendment that will be before the people in November of 2026, which is the next statewide general election.
Correct.
That would prevent the state from enacting any property tax statewide.
Correct.
So this question would not – the question before the people is, do we want to prevent the state from having a statewide property tax, or do we want to keep it at status quo? Right now, the statewide property tax is at zero.
Correct.
So you're not paying any taxes to the state. But the idea is that, God forbid we get a bunch of liberals in the General Assembly, they could raise a property tax.
Exactly.
Statewide. And we want to prevent that before it's even a question.
But now that we've got this through the constitutional amendment hurdle and it's going on the ballot, I can promise you, you do not have to worry about them passing a statewide property tax in 2026 because I will kill that bill and we will be seeing it on the ballot. 95% chance that, Tennesseans approve it. So
Anything else we need to know before we say goodbye? I think we've covered it all.
If you want to stop the property tax hike in Nashville, you should join Pamela Furr on May 1st at 9:30 in the morning in front of the Metro Courthouse and tell them no new taxes.
And, Freddie's speaking on May 1st at 10 o'clock, I think.
Yep, that's the point.
And then he's coming on our show at 3 o'clock that afternoon.
It's a little bit of a protest, but, like how conservatives would do it.
No, I absolutely love it. Tori, thank you for everything. We appreciate you. There's Tori Venable with Americans for Prosperity. Back in a moment. It's news time on Super Talk.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. And right now in Tennessee, a bill that mandates more recess time for kids at school headed for the governor's desk. He can sign into law. This mandates at least 40 minutes of recess per day. So is a bill banning DEI policies for hiring and admissions in local governments, universities, and colleges. That's headed to the governor. And a bill has passed the House and is headed to the state Senate that says TennCare doctors cannot refuse patients who do not get vaccines, any vaccines. And the Food and Drug Administration is moving to phase out 8 petroleum-based food dyes from the food supply. During an event today, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said it's part of a wider effort to improve children's health.
Food dye is just a no-brainer. Nobody wants to eat petroleum.
As part of this effort, the FDA asking food companies, not mandated, asking to substitute petrochemical dyes with natural ingredients already used in Europe and Canada. And the Justice Department's launching a task force to investigate claims of anti-Christian bias during the Biden administration. Attorney General Pam Bondi says the DOJ will protect religious liberty.
Protecting Christians from bias is not favoritism. It's upholding the rule of law and fulfilling the constitutional promise.
The task force drew criticism from Americans United for Separation of Church and State, which says it's just an excuse for bigotry, discrimination, and violation of civil rights. And the Trump administration announcing an end to student loan bailouts. Here's White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt today.
No student loan has been referred to collection since March of 2020. That comes to an end. On May 5th, the Department of Education will resume involuntary collections for borrowers with defaulted federal student loans.
That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Got a crash on the right shoulder 440 westbound after West End Avenue, reported by police. Also 440 eastbound past West End, exit 1, 2. So affecting both directions there. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You've been hearing about it, and now the week has come. The jewelry buying event everyone waits for is here this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's at Genesis Diamonds. It is the biggest event of the year, 3 days only. Unbelievable store-wide savings with up to 35% off some items. This is the event of the year in Genesis Diamonds, and I absolutely love it. Whether it's rings or earrings or pendants or bands or bracelets, stunning fashion jewelry you won't find anywhere else. If you have any event coming up in your life, an engagement, an anniversary, a birthday, new baby, whatever, this is the time to buy. This is a spectacular event to get that amazing gift at a huge discount. Store-wide savings up to 35%. That's right, 35%. And special financing available to you as well. The selection, about double the norm in both locations, Green Hills and Cool Springs. Unbelievable store-wide savings are there at Genesis Diamonds. More jewelry than you've ever seen in one place is normally available at Genesis, and it's about double what you normally see at the locations. So get to the event this Friday, this Saturday, this Sunday, 3 days only. Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs. So Matt Murphy sent you to Genesis. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Metro City Councilor Courtney Johnston will be in with us in just a couple of minutes. We look forward to that conversation about license plate readers and all of the usual subjects that we're always talking about. We're spinning our wheels in Nashville, Tennessee. But we shall discuss with Courtney coming up in just moments. Several of you wanted to talk about food dyes, and Josh disagrees, and Josh has held on, and I'm glad he has, because I love disagreement. Disagreement, Josh, goes to the front of the line, and just because we disagree doesn't mean we have to be disagreeable. What's up, brother?
Hey, Matt. Well, I'm glad I finally get to call in because I agree on just about everything with you, but if I agreed with you on everything, then I'd just be a robot, and this wouldn't be any fun. So, give you a quick background. You're very familiar with cancer and all that. Well, so my daughter's mother, I spent years with her in, Vanderbilt Hospital going through chemo and all that. So I used to come home covered in Roundup because after building cabinets all day, I'd go home and then I'd drive a water and sprayer truck at night on the farm. So the food dye thing, if we're putting poison in our food, I don't agree with it. Now, I'm all about labeling things, and I completely agree with you on that note. But if we're putting poison and stuff, man, that's not okay. I just want to hear your thoughts on that side of it.
Well, what do you mean when you say poisoning? Because, and I'm not here to take up the position of the food companies, but I would suggest that the food companies would take exception with the characterization of these food dyes as poison.
Well, other countries have classified them as such, petroleum-based things. I don't eat petroleum jelly. I'm sure you don't either. So yeah, if it's causing health problems and we can prove it, Now, that's the thing that I don't think it belongs in food. I mean, why do we need bright purple cereal? It's already full of sugar. What's the point there? You know, and I also think in the long run, we make our sugary foods very bright, colorful, and appealing to children. But, you know, we don't push a whole lot of good food at home. Now I don't have this stuff in my house. So that's, you know, I agree with the small L libertarian side of it, man. But
and that would be my position ultimately, Josh, is how are you able to manage to avoid it when are we suggesting that others are just too dumb that they can't, or maybe uninformed? And is it really my fear is not necessarily this, and I think you understand where I'm kind of staking out the position that I don't really have a take exception with these specific items being removed from food, and I would frankly like for the food companies to do it on their own. But a government big enough to do this, I mean, who's to say they wouldn't be big enough to say, you know what, no more refined sugar. You can't add sugar to food products. Now, I'm not saying that's a good idea to do that either, but ultimately it's your decision as to whether or not to consume it, is my point.
Yes, and I get where you're at with it. And again, no libertarian's a real libertarian in the eyes of another. And I'm with
That's right.
So, but my thing is the uninformed masses. So if we're speaking out of both sides of our mouth right now, which is okay because I play devil's advocate a lot, and that's usually what I do. But my thing is, our uninformed masses are also our poorest of the poor. Okay, I would like to see this all change what you can get on food stamps, but that'll never happen because most people, our legislators aren't going to do that. They're not going to say you can't buy sugary foods, you can't buy things with dyes in it. Now, I do believe if that happened, a lot of these food companies would fall in line, you know. But if it's a chemical in the food, and now that's a whole other thing. You know, you could say refined sugar, whatever. I get where you're at, but man, if we know there's bad dyes out there, maybe we don't get the purple, you know, whatever tricks in the cereal, but we'll still have whatever's okay, and maybe we need to go to a different base of our food colorings and our food dyes, you know.
Well, I believe. Here's where I would say I believe, Josh, that we as Americans and as consumers are waking up to a lot of this more so than I've ever seen, and I think a lot of that is a result of COVID. I think a lot of Americans opened their eyes to the way pharmaceutical companies operate and the way that not only big pharma, but big food and the big food industry operates. And they operate for a profit motive. They don't operate for your health or well-being. They don't want to kill you either. They don't want to kill their customers. But at the same time, their interest is making money. And frankly, in some cases, their interest is in getting you addicted to their food product. And, you know, and I'm not even making a moral evaluation on that, but I would say that a more informed population, in my opinion, is the way to go as opposed to government mandate. That's
you know, there's ideology and reality. My ideology lines up with exactly what you're saying, and I'm super happy that people are waking up. But as was said earlier, and I can't remember if it was you or Chad that said it, we're the only place that has our poorest are also most obese people. You know, so again, I would like to see this happen through. You can't buy this crap with food stamps, but it's not. The legislators aren't going to do that because that would cause too many ripples in the water. But I feel like if we know something's bad, and maybe it's a warning, label like they did to cigarettes, because I don't think they should outlaw cigarettes. But instead of just having a nutritional value on the back of it, maybe you slap a big warning label on the front that says, hey, this may kill you. You know, on the front of that cereal box right next to that little rabbit. You know, that little silly rabbit sticker right next to his head. Hell, put a forehead tattoo on him that says, this may kill you. But they're not going to do that either. You see kind of where I'm at with it. And I feel like this will be the quickest way to do it. As a small L libertarian, I understand exactly where you're coming from, Matt. And but it's hard for me. It's hard for me to go against getting rid of the stuff we know is bad. And so
Well, but who gets to dictate but because you believe, or you quote unquote, and this is where I go back to it. You decide that something's bad. Well, what if I want to consume it?
Yeah. I mean, I can see where you're at. If it wasn't,
Then why don't we ban cigarettes?
Well, here's the deal: you can't buy cigarettes at food stamps.
Well, no. On the food stamp, the food stamp front's a different thing, Josh, and you brought it up on a couple of occasions, and I want to speak to it. And thank you for the call. Several have asked the question. It is a very different question whether or not taxpayer money should go to promote unhealthy foods or sugary snacks or these types of things for individuals that, by their own admission, cannot afford to pay the family food bill. I mean, that's what the SNAP program's all about. That's what the food stamp program's all about. So if you are making that admission, then the government ought to have, frankly, some oversight. I mean, at that point, if the government, through the taxpayer's paying for your food at that point, well, we as representatives, our representatives pass laws to best reflect what the taxpaying citizens want to do with their money. And I want my representative to insist that if it comes to it, that you have to rely on that last safety net in order to feed yourself or to feed your family, then we should have certain restrictions about what you're allowed to purchase regarding those food items. I don't have a problem with that, because you're now not using your own money to buy sugary food or your own money to buy food with food dye in it. You're using my money to buy that. And ultimately, perhaps the government needs to have some say in what direction you go in that regard. I mean, I wish that we could ban idiots, and then we wouldn't have to worry about any of this. It is 49 after the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WT. And one more call on this. Steve is in Clarksville. Steve, thank you for calling. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great, Steve. What's on your mind?
Hey, listen, I love your show. I listen to you all the time. My take on this whole deal is I smoke cigarettes and I drink beer daily. I know it's bad for me. This is my choice to consume. When I get off of work, I choose to drink beer while I cut my grass. Well, the food dye that we know is bad for us is forced upon us in, a lot of stuff. And I'm not just talking about sugary cereal. We could do without that, but the food companies aren't forcing alcohol and nicotine in things that we consume on a daily basis. Does that make sense? If we want food coloring, we'll then put that on the shelf next to the crap that we buy, and then you can just add it afterwards. Does that make sense?
They're not. Are you suggesting there's not non-dyeable options available to the consumer?
Well, no, I think that there is, but I mean, is everybody spending that? Like, I go nuts when I'm in the grocery store because I hate being in there, and I try to eat as healthy as I can. But I think that it's in a lot more foods that we don't realize. It's in our steak. If you look at a steak from a farm, it's purple. It's not red. That bright red steak, that's food coloring. It's more appealing to the consumer. I mean, food coloring's in everything.
If the suggestion is that we need to be more informed as a consumer and that the government ought to be proactive in making sure that the food companies give us the information that we need to make informed decisions, then I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with food labeling. I don't have a problem with nutrition labeling. And, the ingredients on everything that you consume are right there on the packaging.
Well, I think we should just ban all food coloring in the food as it's packaged, and then you can just buy food coloring and make it appealing to your children as needed.
Well,
I don't need food coloring for taste.
Well, Steve, I think we should ban all cigarettes and beer.
I know that's bad for me. That's my choice, but I'm not forcing it upon the public.
Well, maybe it's my choice that I want to buy that cereal with all that food coloring in it.
All right, Murphy. Have a good day.
All right, buddy. I bet if Steve drinks beer while he cuts grass, I bet he has the best manicured lawn on the block. What do you think? Honey, I got to go out and get that backyard again. I don't think I got it quite right yesterday.
Missed a spot.
And just missed just a couple of spots. Need to take care of that. All right, 51 after the hour. We've got Courtney Johnston in studio with us. We're going to talk local politics in a moment. Take your calls and questions. Anything on your mind regarding, and frankly, even if you're not in Davidson County, I'm telling you, what's about to happen in Davidson County might impact you because you might see people moving out of Davidson County to your county. I'm just saying. 51 after the hour on Super Talk. All right, friends, it's Matt Murphy, and let's talk for a moment about your health, especially you fellas out there in the listening audience. You know, there is a men-only, men-centric health center called Tennessee Men's Clinic that's there for you, and they deal with things that only you guys go through. Primarily, and one of the biggest topics of conversation around Tennessee Men's Clinic, testosterone levels, and whether or not yours has dipped to the point where it's causing some sort of disruption in your daily life. That disruption can take the form of not wanting to do work in the yard, can take the form of not wanting to go to the gym and, you know, get better performance out of the gym. And it can take the form of a lack of intimacy in your romantic relationship. It is a fact that half of the men in the listening audience will go through at some point in their lives. If you find yourself going through this, you don't have to suffer in silence. You can have an ally with the Tennessee Men's Clinic. Go and schedule an appointment today. Talk to the qualified urologist at the Tennessee Men's Clinic. Let them suggest a plan of action for you that can get you back right with all of your life skills, with all of your lifestyle choices, and get you back into the bedroom with that significant other of yours. TennesseeMen'sClinic.com or call 615-208-9090. 208-9090. 2 locations to serve, one in Franklin, the other in Midtown. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. Roll Call 3.0 is coming to Nashville this May 2nd and 3rd. I'm very excited about this event. It's hosted by Jason Whitlock, features Tucker Carlson, a 2-day event, and you don't want to miss it. It's more than just a conference. It's a call to action. Roll Call 3.0 is about uniting bold and faith-driven men to stand strong in today's culture. It all starts Friday, May 2nd, with a VIP evening at 3rd and Lindsley, featuring a conversation with Jason Whitlock and Tucker Carlson, live country music from Randy Houser and comedian Steve Byrne. On Saturday, the event moves to Rocketown for a full day of inspiration, insight, and high-impact speakers to include Alan Jackson of World Outreach Church, Idaho's Doug Wilson, and Chicago's Corey Brooks. Roll Call 3.0 is about faith, fellowship, and fearless conversation. Get your tickets right now at fearlessrollcall.com. That's fearlessrollcall.com. You want to get those tickets now? Don't wait. This event will sell out. Once again, fearlessrollcall.com.
Lawmakers have sent Governor Lee a few more bills he can sign into law, and Attorney General Pam Bondi announced the Eradicating Anti-Christian Bias Task Force. These stories and more at 5 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
They need to come up with a different name for that. That one doesn't spell anything. The Eradicating Christian Bias Task Force, the ECBTF.
EACBTF.
The what now?
EACBTF.
Well, there you go. See that, Ken, I don't think it has a ring to it. I don't think it's going anywhere. We got a couple of minutes before the top of the hour, enough time to introduce our next guest. She's going to be with us for about 30 minutes in the next hour. She is Courtney Johnston. She is our favorite Metro counselor, one of the few that'll come on and say hello to us from time to time, and we appreciate her so much. Hey, Courtney, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great.
You're looking very Hawaiian today.
Well, thank you. It felt kind of summery outside, or at least late springy. So
finally,
76, 77 degrees outside. I felt like it was time.
And then the rain comes back tomorrow. I'm so over it.
Are you over the rain?
Oh, I'm over the rain, and I'm over the gray, and I'm over the wind.
Man, you sound like a friend of Ken Weaver's. Ken Weaver says Ken Weaver said it's not a good day if it's under 75, Ken?
It's got to be over 70.
Over 70.
Anything
degrees.
under 70 is vulgar.
I appreciate the 4 seasons that we have, but I'm over this winter and this transition.
Courtney?
Yes.
I invite you to live in Boise, Idaho for a while.
Will not happen. We spent the better part of a January in 2019 in Indianapolis, and my husband grew up there, and I literally was like, why does anybody live here?
Yeah.
This is the frozen tundra of hell.
Well, I always like to say I lived in Connecticut for 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
And if you find that you have a terminal illness and you only have 9 months to live, move to Connecticut, because by the time it's over, you'll want to die. That's how bad it is.
I believe it.
I mean, man, it snowed 84 inches that winter, Ken.
Oh, my God.
84 inches. My goodness gracious. All right, well, we've got fun things to talk about, like LPRs and fuses and taxes. Taxes. That's coming up next with Courtney Johnston of the Metro Council. It's on the way on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Five o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. And right now in Tennessee, lawmakers have sent Governor Lee a few more bills he can sign into law. One of those bills bans DEI hiring and admissions policies in local governments, universities, and colleges. Another bill headed to the governor mandates at least 40 minutes of recess at public schools. And a bill that has passed the House and is headed to the state Senate says TennCare doctors cannot refuse patients who do not get vaccines. Any vaccine. Listen as the bill's sponsor, Knoxville Republican State Rep Michelle Carringer, spoke on her bill and the response by Nashville Democrat Bo Mitchell as heard on Fox 17.
Our kids are going to school right now with children who are unvaccinated, and they're playing ball, and they're out in the community, and they're in the grocery stores. So there's no way that we can stop that. It is all of the ones that have come in to our country that are unvaccinated that are bringing these particular illnesses.
For you to stand up there and say that it's people coming in from other countries that are harming us, no, it's people in this country who don't have enough sense to go get the free vaccine to save their own lives. So don't blame someone coming in from another country.
Again, that bill passed the House, and it is now headed to the Senate. And in our nation's capital today.
For the last 50 years, American children have increasingly been living in a toxic soup of synthetic chemicals.
That's FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary, alongside Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr., announcing an effort to phase out 8 petroleum-based food dyes from the U.S. food supply, claiming studies show the additives are harmful to children.
Taking petroleum-based food dyes out of the food supply is not a silver bullet that will instantly make America's children healthy, but it is one important step.
So they're asking food companies to substitute petrochemical dyes with natural ingredients. Attorney General Pam Bondi announcing the Eradicating Anti-Christian Bias Task Force to defend Christianity in schools, workplaces, and government.
The Department of Justice will protect religious liberty for Christians and for all Americans.
This task force drawing criticism from Americans United for Separation of Church and State, which says it's just a way to justify bigotry, discrimination, and civil rights violations. And the Supreme Court dealing with a case that questions whether parents of public school children have the constitutional right to opt their kids out of classroom lessons involving storybooks that feature LGBTQ themes or characters. Here's ABC News senior Washington reporter Devin Dwyer.
A majority of the justices, nearly all the conservative justices, were very sympathetic to the parents in this case. The parents are asking for the right to remove their kids from class. They were talking about elementary school level kids here. Anytime a storybook, fairy tale involving same-sex characters, maybe there's a marriage involved in the book, they want the ability for teachers to give notice that the book will be read or is available and want the kids to be able to opt out.
That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Boy, the drive home just slowed down tremendously. Starting in Montgomery County, we got a vehicle fire blocking the left lane 24 before MLK Parkway. Then here in Nashville, we got a stalled vehicle blocking the left lane. This is going to be 40 eastbound at Hermitage Avenue. Then over by Belmont, police reporting a crash 65 northbound at Wedgwood Avenue. Stalled vehicle blocking the left lane 40 eastbound before Charlotte Avenue. And a crash on the right shoulder on the west end, 440 westbound after exit 1. In Madison, police reporting a crash 65 southbound at Briley Parkway, Ellington Parkway, exit 90AB. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Matt Murphy. This is the Matt Murphy Show. Hello, how are you? Welcome in. Glad you're with us. It's 7 minutes after 5 o'clock. If you're just joining in, lots going on. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. making an announcement that the government plans on banning at least a phase-out ban of 8 additives to our food. That big announcement discussed on the Matt Murphy Show for the better part of an hour or so. We're going to turn our attention to some local matters, some Davidson County matters, but it's going to impact all of us in Metro Nashville and beyond. We'll discuss said same with our good friend Courtney Johnston, who joins us. She is a Metro counselor sitting amongst the crazies on the Nashville Metro Council, and she sits amongst the crazies here today in studio. We were just talking. Courtney and I were just talking about the affordable housing crisis in Davidson County. Specifically in Brentwood. I would love to find a place in Brentwood, but I need to find like a lottery ticket before I find a place in Brentwood. One way or the other.
Yes.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah. So what's going on at the Metro Council? Anything good?
Well, so
I say anything good, and I've stumped her.
Well, we just did some improvements to our financial policy around reserves, so that's good, but decently boring. But that's good.
Does Nashville have reserves?
We do. We changed that a couple of years ago, where we require 3 months or 17% of our operating budget to be held in reserves. Before that, we only had to hold 5%, and we fell below that, which is why we had that huge 34% tax increase, was to put money back into our reserves.
That 34% tax increase. Remind me what type of tax increase that was again?
That was a property tax increase.
And when was that?
That was 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
Last time we reassessed property value.
Well, actually,
I believe,
no. It
right?
was the year before.
Okay.
And then the property tax. So we raised taxes in 2020 for FY21, but it was in 2021 that the reappraisal happened. Happens every 4 years.
Right. Okay. So that makes sense. Well, we just had a reappraisal.
We did. It was a doozy.
It was. Yeah. I mean, my goodness gracious. If everybody's moving out of Davidson County, if everybody's leaving the metro area, which, I mean, I don't think that's so, by the way, but Davidson County is, the growth of Davidson County is probably not keeping up with the rest of the metro. Is that fair?
That's fair, yeah.
Then I'm a little confused as to how property values are going up in the amount that they're going up, but I guess the appraisal is what the appraisal is.
Well, when you look at it, when you get your appraisal amount, it is going to be sticker shock from a percentage perspective. But if you were to list your house, if you look at that appraised value, and you think, if I was going to list my house right now, what would I list it for? It's probably close to what that is, because she does that. The property assessor does that based off of market values.
So the truth in taxation piece that was passed by the General Assembly in the 1970s, and we were talking to Tori Venable about this a little while ago. Mm-hmm. to me, it forces the politicians to be more honest with the people that they serve when they decide to go up on rates.
Yeah, so, they like to raise the tax rate around, like in the same year, typically, as a reappraisal. And I think that the reason they do that is because it all gets conflated.
It gets confusing to people.
Correct.
And intentionally so, in my opinion.
That's what I'm saying. I really do think that is. And we did it differently under John Cooper in 2020 because we had to. The state we didn't have any money in reserves. We were out of balance. So that was the timing on that one. But with this, I think it's really important to tell people the average is 45% of an increase across the county. So what happens when that happens is so if your property tax went up 45% or your valuation went up 45%, your tax liability is not going to go up by 45% because we're going to have what's called an equalization rate.
Mm-hmm.
So if the property values go up by 45%, the rate has to come down by 45%.
The idea being that we should not, politicians, and this is the way that I look at it, tell me if I'm wrong, that politicians should not allow the tax assessor to effectively raise their taxes. They should have to do that themselves. So the state forces an equalization when the assessment goes up. And if the politicians need more money after that, they have to go back to the people and say, hey, we're going to go back up on the rate.
Correct. Now, not everybody's taxes went up exactly appraisals, went up exactly 45%. So if your appraisal was higher than 45%, let's say it was 55%, you are going to see an increase even after that equalization rate of 10%.
Okay, so the equalization rate is only based on the average?
The average across the county, correct.
Okay.
So if
That's important.
if your reappraisal came in at 35% of an increase, your liability will actually go down.
But the concept is that the government
cannot receive a
more
windfall.
Money.
Correct. And Tori explained it exactly right. I was listening earlier. We cannot receive a windfall. It has to be equal.
So anyone suggesting that because of the reassessment and because of the equalization rate that Nashville is going to take in less money is not being true. Nashville is going to take in the same amount of money via property taxes this year.
The exact same.
Right.
Right.
So,
but we're also coming into our budget season. And so in the mayor's budget, he has already told everyone this is the time to raise rates. I personally, and I've been public saying it, I think that the over-under on that rate is probably a 20% tax increase, which is insanity. But so that is what's really going to increase your rate. So there's some people that will be affected by their appraised rate if they weren't exactly at that 45%. What's really going to get everybody is the tax rate increase.
What is the expected timing on the time? Let's talk about the equalization first, and then we'll talk about the possibility that Freddie's going to propose an increase. So, what is the timing on that, to your understanding? I mean, doesn't that's going to take into the summer and even into the fall, right, before we see that equalization, or is that happening? Is that an immediate thing?
I expect to see that on the next meeting's agenda, because it really will have sort of no effect. I mean, because the tax bills won't go out.
Just some smart people are going to do the math, right?
Right, correct. Well, it's pretty easy. It's 45%. I mean,
across the board.
Yep. Yeah. So the rate will come down by 45%.
And then it'll go back up.
When we pass a budget, correct.
Right. But those two things are separate from one another.
100% separate. Yes.
Do you believe that there will be some politicians in the Davidson County area that will try to conflate those two things? I mean, is that what
Yes, because it's very easy to confuse folks. Absolutely. They'll say, well, property values have gone up and that's why, and our rate is really low. Well, the rate is low because the values have gone up. So that's what they always say is, well, but our rate is super low. It's one of the lowest in the entire state. Well, you're right. But that's because of that.
The values went up.
Exactly. So it's the liabilities when people say, but that's their excuse of saying, well, we need to raise the rates because our tax rate is so low. It's like, well, it's only part of the equation.
It's amazing to me that, and maybe it shouldn't be, that some political figures, I mean, the mayor is one of them, who talks a good game about affordable housing in this community, but then has suggested on our radio show that this year is a good year to raise property taxes. And he didn't say as much, but he didn't shut the door to it. And there's every expectation by everyone that I speak with, yourself included, that those rates are going to go up. How does he suggest that that won't impact affordable housing in Davidson County?
You can't make it make sense.
Right?
Right.
You're right. What they try to do is that, in my experience, Courtney, they try to pretend that rent payers don't get affected by property tax increases. Do you believe that rent payers will be impacted by property tax increases?
100%. Yeah, those property owners are going to increase the rents in order to cover those fixed expenses. 100%.
Do you believe? I have predicted, and I did this the other night. I think you might have been invited to this, but you had a little gathering at the Metro Council that you had to attend. I think this was on a Tuesday night.
The Davidson County.
So we were talking about property tax increases and how political figures push one over on the tax-paying citizens. And I don't know if Davidson County is too far gone to help them understand how all of this works, but I believe the push is going to be against Trump. I think that Freddie and his minions on the council are going to suggest, and I've already seen evidence of it.
He's already done it, yeah.
That he's saying, well, because Trump's cutting these federal dollars, we can't expect this money in our budgets. And if you want to keep police on the streets and if you want to keep fire service in your communities, we're going to have to go up on. We don't want to. They were going to do this anyway. I don't care who was president of the United States.
He has been talking about the property tax increase since before Donald Trump even won the election in November, much less was put into office and sworn in and all that. So that's nonsense. But it's a great way to pass the buck. Nobody wants to take the blame. And so that's exactly right. And it's apparently really easy right now to blame everything on Trump. So
what's the messaging that the people need to send to the Metro Council then? Just no?
Yeah. Well, here's what I say is I think if people had any type of assurances that the government was being run efficiently, that we didn't have a ton of waste, and that, yes, maybe property taxes need to go up a little bit. We get that. But we feel like our government is being run really well. Nobody thinks that. If they do, they're mistaken because it's not. I deal with it all the time. Basically every department. There's things that can be done that could make it more efficient, 100%. And so that's where I would say is why are we never talking about looking at efficiencies? And I don't want to talk about just cut this and cut that. You don't even have to necessarily do that. Just start with the easy low-hanging fruit like contracts that we're not managing very well, that are millions of dollars, right? Because that happens all the time. I'm dealing with it right now with 2 departments. So that's my problem with it is the government always has their hand out, but they're never looking in the mirror and saying, hey, what can I do to make sure that we are spending these dollars in a wise, responsible, efficient manner?
Well, because they're spending other people's money. And
it's super easy to do, apparently.
Sadly, you're going to see mismanagement and you're going to see a lack of fiscal responsibility when you're spending other people's money. Yeah. I mean, so, listeners are asking, well, who is who is the Doge person in Davidson County besides Courtney Johnston? I mean, I feel like you would be that person if you had the ability.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is one of the reasons I got that I ran and thankfully won and got on the audit committee. And I've initiated several audits and we're getting those back. And I think we're going to get some good things out of it. Hopefully the mayor will respond in a way that is appropriate to some of these things and make some of the necessary changes based off of that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying that everybody in the government is bad. We certainly have some amazing people that work for the government, but we also have some just willy-nilly attitudes with dollars that are not theirs, and it makes an impact on real people's lives. We've got people on fixed incomes, are elderly. We've got young folks that are moving here and that live here and trying to get on their feet. And so these property taxes and the sales tax and all that, it makes a difference. And so we should take it more seriously, I think.
Remind me what the transit tax was again.
It was 0.5%.
And that applies to everybody.
Correct.
Obviously. I mean, they like to sell it as a tourist tax, but it applies to everyone.
Correct.
Equally. And so on the heels of that, which the voters voted for, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, sadly, I think they were duped in a certain way, but the voters went out and they supported that idea. Now that they're not going to see some of that federal money that they were dependent on, I mean, some of that was grant dependent. Am I not right?
The sales pitch was, when we have a dedicated source of revenue, it will just unlock all these federal dollars.
Right.
And what I said was, not necessarily. Right? It's not just like, oh, the federal government's just going to unlock the door and all this cash is going to fly out at us. It's like, no, that's not how it works.
Well, and see, local liberals typically look at the federal government as a free money piggy bank. And that time is over, thankfully, because finally someone's up there going, we need to get our fiscal house in order. And instead of going, well, we need to reassess or maybe put this genie back into the bottle, they're going to want their money from somebody.
Yes.
Us.
And they're going to get it. Yeah.
Through property tax increase.
The property tax increase, yeah. And so everyone understands. So the way it works is by June 30th, we have to pass a budget. We are going to get the mayor's budget on May 1st during State of Metro. And so from that, the Metro Council we can do one of three things. No, one of two things. Well, three. We can just pass the budget. We can say, yep, because it's filed as an ordinance.
Right. Great job, Mayor. Thanks.
Nice job. Yep. Or we can put together our own substitute budget, or we can amend his budget, which basically ends up being a substitute. So the problem with that is that we have to have 40 people. We're a 40-person body. So if whatever we pass has to have a majority, and everybody's got their own stuff they want, we have to rob Peter to pay Paul unless we are willing to increase taxes to get what we want. But if we said as a council, we don't want this 20% tax increase.
And he's already included it in his budget.
And it's already in his budget. And the budget has to balance, which means the revenue equals the expenses. So then we have to look at those expenses and say, okay, if we don't want all this new revenue, we're going to have to cut that same number of expenses, or we have to find the money elsewhere, which there's no money tree.
And you don't have enough conservative-minded people on the council to do that, do you?
It's not even necessarily conservative. It's just nobody wants to make cuts. Cuts can be hard, but that's part of the job, is to make those hard decisions. No, I mean, in fact, so in 2020, Mayor Cooper proposed a 32% tax increase. The council passed a 34% tax increase.
They actually bumped it up.
All
right, hold your thought there. Courtney Johnston with us for another segment. It's 23 after the hour on Super Talk.
DEI policies just a signature away from going away in Tennessee. Local governments, colleges, and universities. This story and more at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hi, thank you much, Mr. Ken Weaver. Chris writes in and says, hey, this is off subject, but Matt and I have the same shirt. Well, I don't think it's the same shirt.
I would hope not, anyway.
I mean, I would hope not, too. The same style shirt, perhaps. I don't think we're sharing the shirt. And then Chris offers, and I still wear it, too. And I think that's an insult, I think.
Well, he likes your shirt.
Well, thank you. I'm glad he does. Courtney Johnston in studio with us. So is there anything the people of Davidson County can do to prevent the mayor's proposed property tax increase, in your opinion?
I mean, sadly, probably not.
I mean, that's sad, but
I'm just being honest, because if he feels like we need more revenue for whatever he's going to add or whatever that is, he's going to do it.
And the way that it works, he includes it in his budget.
Yep.
And then the Metro Council signs off on it or has to cut money out of the budget.
Right.
In order to cut the property tax increase.
Correct.
And you don't believe the Metro Council has the willingness to do that as a body?
No, and we don't really affect the budget too much anyway. It's literally like 1%, maybe 2%, just because our process is we rob Peter to pay Paul. So, 5 years ago we added 2%. I voted against that, but that's just what our process is. What I would say is, elections have consequences, and until we start really paying attention to the people that we're putting in office, especially on the local level, we've got people upset about a zone change. That is the one absolute power that council members have, and our planning department gets, thrown under the bus all the time. Oh, they're so pro-development. Planning doesn't initiate anything. The council members do it.
Well, I want, can you stick around for a second?
Yeah.
We've got Nincompoops coming up, but I want Courtney to stick around because we haven't talked to LPRs, and you went off. You went off on the LPR subject, and I need to talk about this.
What?
But right now it's time for Ken Weaver and Super Talk 99.7 WTN News right now.
.5:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Stocks rebounding from yesterday's steep losses. Part of that, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying the trade war with China will de-escalate in the near future. Investors might also like President Trump telling reporters today he will not retaliate against Fed Chair Jerome Powell if he doesn't cut interest rates.
No, I have no intention of firing him. I would like to see him be a little more active in terms of his idea to lower interest rates. This is a perfect time to lower interest rates.
Right now in Tennessee, DEI policies will be prohibited under a bill headed for Governor Lee's desk, which he can sign into law. The dismantled DEI Act says local governments, schools, and universities cannot base hiring or admissions on race, sex, religion, age, or disability. And Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr. today calling on food manufacturers to phase out the use of 8 petrochemical dyes in our food supply.
Food dye is just a no-brainer. Nobody wants to eat petroleum.
The announcement aimed at targeting artificial dyes that are used in cereal, ice cream, snacks, yogurts, and more. The move comes after studies suggest the dyes could be harmful. And Attorney General Pam Bondi announcing the Eradicating Anti-Christian Bias Task Force to defend Christianity in schools, workplaces, and government.
Protecting Christians from bias is not favoritism. It's upholding the rule of law and fulfilling the constitutional promise.
Now, the task force drawing criticism from Americans United for Separation of Church and State, which says it's just a way to justify bigotry, discrimination, and violating civil rights. And after several layoffs announced in Rutherford County, the county finally got some good news. After announcing job cuts in January, Nissan says it is reversing course, and instead of cutting jobs at the plant in Smyrna, they're going to ramp up production. News 2 says it was told by a Nissan spokesperson that it is not clear when or how many jobs could come with this new expansion. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, we've got a stalled vehicle blocking the left two lanes of 40 eastbound right before Charlotte Avenue, then 40 westbound at Jefferson Street, and 440 westbound after West End Avenue, exit 1. You got the right shoulder blocked. Stalled vehicle on the shoulder, 24 eastbound past Waldron Road. In Montgomery County, an early vehicle fire now is off on the shoulder. That's going to be 24 before MLK Parkway. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You know, when I think of local politicians like Freddie O'Connell, I think of pests. I do. It just naturally makes me think of bugs, creepy crawlies, things that you want to get rid of out of your home for good. And that makes me think of U.S. Pest. The good part of this is that J.K. Brister and Erica Brister, they own U.S. Pest, and they're here for you. If you have bugs, they can't get politicians out of your house, but they can get bugs out of your house. What bugs you? And these little bugs are communist, and they are. They get into your walls. They get into your property. They enjoy your AC in the hot months. They enjoy your heat in the winter months, and they want what is yours. And they don't pay for it. They don't pay you rent. Well, it's time to get them out of there. Stink bugs and spiders and brown recluses and roaches and silverfish and fire ants and ticks and fleas. All these things need to be eliminated from your life, and you do so by contacting U.S. Pest. They are simply the best at pest protection in this community. Let's give them a call today at 590-1260. That's 615-590-1260 or online at uspest.com. right, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy calling an audible. You know, normally at this time you would hear nincompoops in the news. But right now we're having such a great conversation with Courtney Johnston. No, I'm not about to make a joke.
I was just waiting for
You were just waiting for it. I'm not about to make a joke. We're having a good conversation with Courtney, and we ran out of time to talk about a couple of other aspects affecting county government that we wanted to keep you on. We will have nincompoops in the news, never you fear, right around 6:05 this afternoon. I don't want to rush nincompoops in the news, so prepare for that at 6:05. Occasionally, the host of the show calls an audible on that. You kind of went off. I say go off, and I don't know, maybe that's a mischaracterization. But the mayor, Freddie O'Connell, doesn't seem to know how to take a stand one way or the other on the issue of LPRs, or he seems confused by it. He seemed confused about where we are in the process. I'm not knocking the guy. He's going to be on May 1st. We'll ask him about it. But he seemed to, in recent comment, throw it back on the Metro Council as to why we don't have license plate readers. Now, I understand that there's a genuine debate about civil liberty with regard to license plate readers. And we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the fact that it is not sitting in the lap of the Metro Council as to whether or not this happens. Talk to me about your frustration with the mayor's characterization.
Well, so oh my gosh. So my ordinance that crafted the policy around it and allowed LPRs in the right of way passed in 2022. We had the 6-month pilot. It was successful. We passed the resolution that allowed the full implementation. That was in fall of 2023, maybe summertime of 2023, right before the elections. The election. So since Freddie was sworn in, he has had that in his lap. The contracts were in procurement. We've had those contracts ready to go for well over a year. And so for a while he was saying, oh, it's stuck in procurement. No, it's not. No, it's not, because I called procurement. No, it's stuck on his desk. He has to sign off on it. That's something new that his administration has done, where they have to sign off on every single thing, administration legislation that comes through. I don't know that anybody, certainly John Cooper didn't do that. He signed off on a lot of things, but it's Freddie's position that he signs off on every single thing. So he is the holdup. He also didn't fund it in the FY24 budget. Sorry, FY25 budget. The budget season
that we're currently in.
That we're in, yeah. So if you don't fund it, it obviously shows that you don't have any intention of putting forth. Why would you put forth a contract that doesn't have money associated with it?
So to be crystal clear, the Metro Council has done everything that the Metro Council needs to do to implement license plate readers.
Correct.
In Davidson County.
Correct. Now, 2 meetings ago, Councilmember Tanya Hancock put forth a piece of legislation, a resolution, asking the mayor to bring the contracts to us. I'm told that the administration was lobbying against that. Certainly all of the people that are all against LPRs, and oh God, they're watching us, came out against it. And it was so heavily fought against that she just withdrew it. The fact is, we don't have the votes in the council. We don't. And I thought we had votes for Fusus, and now I don't think we have votes even for Fusus, which shows a massive disconnect between the people representing and the people that we're supposed to represent.
Is crime currently a problem in Davidson County?
Yes, it's the number one complaint from everyone.
Because I hear about shootings.
Yes.
I hear about robberies. Mm-hmm. I hear about theft and
every single day.
Carjackings and all of these types of things, all of which could potentially be prevented by technology like Fusus, technology like LPRs, that, in the case of Fusus, sadly, the Metro Council does not see fit to vote on that. LPRs, the Metro Council's already... So you're saying it's already happened for the council, but if the council had to re-vote on LPRs, you don't think you would have the votes now?
Well, so we have to approve the contract. So so they're allowed in the right-of-way. The policy has been approved. You just
have to find the right company and
Right. And we have those companies ready to go. Those contracts are ready to go. We just have to approve them legislatively. That's what has not been brought to the council is the contracts. He continues to go back to the policy. Oh, well, we had all these meetings for public input. We spent 4 years doing public input. How many community meetings do we have
Does.
It's just, for God's sake. It's ridiculous. And so, yeah, I did go off a little bit because he has held this up for almost 2 years now. He's been in office for almost 2 years. He has been the one to hold it up. And so to blame it on the Metro Council just really burned me up. No, the problem is that everything was on hold. This entire city was on hold, no matter what, until the transit referendum.
And he got his transit tax.
And he got it. And so now here we are.
So I'm fascinated by this. The mayor seems to be developing a bit of a pattern, whether it's FUSIS or LPRs or you and I were talking off air about the Nashville Speedway, the Fairground Speedway, which I'll bring up in just a moment. It's the same pattern, is hesitate, wait, blame other activities as to why you can't do something right now, wait a situation out to the point that you then claim that you need public input on the situation that had public input a year and a half ago, but you waited for so long, right? They're doing that with the Fairground Speedway now. I was a part of the meeting at Geodis Park a year or so ago, or a year and a half ago, when the overwhelming sentiment was take the Bristol money and revitalize the Nashville Fairground Speedway. And now what I'm hearing, because they've slow-walked this for so long, we need more public input. Well, you just had public input a year and a half ago. You're the reason that the public input isn't fresh because you slow-walked it intentionally. It's this circular pattern that delays instead of just making a decision and announcing to the people that this is what we're going to do or this is what we're not going to do.
Well, that's what a leader would do. And so we have now someone that is just massively averse to any type of conflict. He doesn't want to make anybody mad, but in his quest to not make anybody mad, he's making everybody mad.
On the issue of the Nashville Fairground Speedway, we haven't seen any movement on it.
Correct.
I mean, the Bristol folks have offered what I consider to be a sweetheart deal for the city.
Unbelievable. You'll never see it again. I mean, it is just an incredible investment into this city.
It is my understanding that it is solely because of the objection of the ownership group of Geodis Park as to why there's not been any movement on that. Do you get any indication that that is the case?
You know, I know they're having conversations, obviously off the record, behind the scenes. And so I really don't know. But again, you know, as the executive branch, it's your job, it's your duty to make a decision that's best for this city and move forward. Make a decision and move forward.
There is a movement to try to get right now, for those that don't know, it is a part of the Metro Council charter that there be racing at the Nashville Fairground Speedway.
It is a charter protected use, yes.
And is there not a movement to try to get that on a ballot somewhere to remove that from the charter?
Yes, that's the only way that can happen is through referendum, which we had, I think it's in 2017. I'm sure my phone will go off if it's wrong, because I know there's folks that are listening. I think we had that referendum in 2017, and it came back overwhelmingly in support of the Speedway, the Fairground Speedway. My fear is that if we went to referendum again, that the demographics have changed so greatly in Nashville that there are people here that don't necessarily value that history.
Right.
And so I don't know that would work out so well for us again. I may be wrong, but that would be my fear.
Right. I mean, you don't have to value motorsports. I don't think you have to value racing. I do, and I appreciate it, and I know a lot of folks think that that's my sole interest. I've been in enough communities, and I think the city of Nashville's seen it a lot too, where once you lose these one-off aspects of your city, you're never getting them back.
Right.
And no amount of condominiums and no amount of parking garages are going to change that. I mean, and if y'all tell me if I'm wrong. Courtney, you tell me if I'm wrong, but if it was up to the city of Nashville, the Ryman Auditorium wouldn't be there.
That's a fact. That is a fact.
I mean, they were ready to let it go.
Yeah.
And the Ryman Auditorium was saved by private interest in private groups. And, maybe that's what it's going to take here. Sadly, I think that there are private interest and private groups that are actively working behind the scenes to prevent the Fairground Speedway from being
Well,
renovated.
and we have that, right? So Bristol is that private group that is offering
that's
to
true.
come
That's
in
exactly right.
and do. And yet we've got people that are trying to stop that too. So it's really, really frustrating. But that track, for people that don't know, I think you said it was 1906. But anyway, it was early 1900s.
Horse racing to begin with.
Horse racing. And forever it has been a very economical, family-friendly place to go and have some fun and not break the bank. And so I hope that we can keep that part of our history.
Well, I certainly do as well. Is there anything else? I mean, you say Fusus is dead? And for those that don't know, Fusus is existing security camera technology, private existing technology that the city wants to engage in private contracts with so that they can access that technology in an expedited amount of time.
It's an integration software.
Right. In order to catch bad guys.
Right. So the cameras are already there. They're already at the
They're already
Kroger
running.
and at the MAPCO, and all these commercially owned, businesses have these cameras. The cameras are already there. Fusus just allows integration into those systems so that the police can access them when there is a call for service so that they can expedite their response and make it a more safe, efficient way to investigate and respond to active scenes.
And for some reason, the Metro Council says no to that too.
Thus far, yeah. I mean, yes. So we haven't got the contract. We did pass a policy around it, just like we passed the policy around LPRs in 2022 of mine. But the actual contract, which is what we're waiting on. So we're waiting on the contract for Fusus and the contracts multiple for LPRs. That's the only thing that we're waiting on. The mayor's office has not put them forth. Again, at this moment, I don't think we have the votes for either one of them.
Are you excited about Bridgestone Arena getting redone? That's nice, huh? That's fun.
Sure.
That'll be good.
It will, yes.
I mean, East Bank rolling right along.
That's true.
I heard somebody bought the steel thing or whatever.
Oh, the PSC metals?
Yeah.
I wonder who bought that.
I don't know, but that's what I heard.
I'm going to make a phone call when I leave here because I know somebody that was involved in that.
I heard that there was an environmental study going on.
Well, yeah, yikes.
and you know what? I don't want to deliver bad information. I want to take something back. What I may have heard was that there was a sale contingent on
I think that's probably more accurate. That's probably more accurate. Yeah, I mean, that's a six-figure at least probably environmental mitigation is what I heard several years ago. I haven't, but
there's a fear. I mean, and for those that don't know, the scrap metal yard, everybody's seen it off the interstate, off the loop.
Can't miss it.
You can't miss it. And there was an unwillingness to sell for many, many years.
Yep.
And that they've now agreed to sell. But the concern is once you start digging, what are you going to find? Because that thing's been there for long enough that there were probably a lot of loose rules about what could and could not go into the ground back in the day. And if they start finding stuff, they got to dig it up.
And again, I say yikes.
Yeah. Well,
we shall see what's underneath there.
We all shall see. Thank you for everything.
Yeah,
Courtney.
absolutely. Glad to be here.
Courtney Johnston, one of the good guys on the Metro Council, one of the few. We'll be back in just a moment. Nincompoops in the News is coming up. It's 52 after the hour on Super Talk. Oh, my goodness. It's T-Shirt Tuesday at Volunteer Outfitters. You got like 6-8 minutes to go to Volunteer Outfitters and get your T-shirt. Oh, there's always next Tuesday, though. Volunteer Outfitters is located on New Shackle Island Road. I love Tommy and his crew out there. They are great at what they do. You do not have to go to downtown Nashville to get incredible brands at incredible prices. They got them right there in Hendersonville at Volunteer Outfitters. We're talking about every outdoorsman's dream. Whether you're a hunter, whether you're a fisherman, maybe you're getting ready for fishing season, maybe you're just getting ready for boat season, you can do it at Volunteer Outfitters. They got all kind of clothing for the golfer or the hunter or the fisherman in your life or just somebody that loves the salt water. They've got things like Orca coolers, Extra Tough boots, Aftco, Drake, Huck, just to name a few of their brands. And don't forget about the ever popular T-Shirt Tuesday. Any purchase in the store, and you get a free T-shirt on Tuesdays, courtesy of Volunteer Outfitters. Go see them in Hendersonville. Oh, they got team gear as well. All manner of teams, not just the volunteer team, but all manner of collegiate teams at Volunteer Outfitters. They're open 10 to 6 Tuesday through Friday, 10 to 4 on Saturday, 615-431-0824 for any questions or stop by on New Shackle Island Road.
One reason stocks rebounded today, and another reason they may skyrocket tomorrow. And Tennessee lawmakers sending a few more bills to Governor Lee to sign into law. These stories and more at 6 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Oh, you guys are funny over on the Super Text line. Y'all are a hoot over there.
What are they saying?
Scott writes in and says, boy, if they start digging on that scrapyard, they're going to find Jimmy Hoffa. Maybe, I don't know. They find Hoffa if they do an environmental study at the metal yard. 9900 says that very historic over there. I'm sure it is. And I want to reiterate, I don't want to misstate what I have been told, because I know that, we carry a little weight on a 100,000 watt radio station, but what I've been told is that the sale is potentially pending an environmental study.
If they dig deep enough, they'll find Al Gore. Just keep looking. He's down there somewhere.
Lockbox. No, he's studying the climate down there. Yeah, that's probably what he's doing. All right, we got one more hour to go. We got nincompoops in the news, plus student loans are in default, according to the Department of Education. Much, much more to come. It is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hang in there.
Six o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes. Stocks rebounded from yesterday's steep losses after Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the trade war with China will de-escalate in the near future. President Trump told reporters he has no intention of firing Fed Chair Jerome Powell after criticizing Powell yesterday on social media for not lowering interest rates.
It's all coming down. The only thing that hasn't come down, but it hasn't gone up much, are interest rates, and we think the Fed should lower the rate. We think that it's a perfect time to lower the rate, and would like to see our chairman be early or on time as opposed to late.
Right now in Tennessee, a bill headed to Governor Lee, which he can sign into law. It says local governments, universities, and colleges cannot use DEI policies for hiring and admissions. Another bill that has passed the House and is headed to the state Senate says TennCare doctors cannot refuse patients who are not vaccinated. We're talking about any vaccination. And another bill headed to the governor will mandate at least 40 minutes of recess for kids at school. And in our nation's capital, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announcing an effort to get food manufacturers to phase out at least 8 petroleum-based dyes from the U.S. food supply.
We're going to get rid of the dyes, and then one by one, we're going to get rid of every ingredient and additive in school in food that we can legally address.
So he's calling for an end to these 8 synthetic food dyes by the end of next year. The Justice Department launching a task force to investigate claims of anti-Christian bias during the Biden administration. Attorney General Pam Bondi chairing that task force.
The Department of Justice will protect religious liberty for Christians and for all Americans.
Now, this task force drawing criticism from Americans United for Separation of Church and State, which says it's an excuse for bigotry, discrimination, and violating civil rights. The Trump administration announcing an end to student loan bailouts. Here's White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt today.
No student loan has been referred to collections since March of 2020. That comes to an end. On May 5th, the Department of Education will resume involuntary collections for borrowers with defaulted federal student loans.
Could mean wage garnishment. And the Supreme Court dealing with a case that questions whether parents of public school children have the constitutional right to opt their kids out of classroom lessons involving storybooks that feature LGBTQ themes or characters. Here's Devin Dwyer.
The school board says opt-outs are hard to administer. They also are disrespectful to same-sex families. And so the debate today very much centered on those lines. When does exposure to ideas in the classroom become coercion?
And a majority of the justices, nearly all the conservative justices, very sympathetic to the parents in this case. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, police still reporting a stalled vehicle on the right shoulder 40 eastbound before Charlotte Avenue. Then police say there's a crash 65 northbound right there at 440. 65 southbound at Armory Drive, an accident. And then in Antioch, stalled vehicle on the left shoulder 24 eastbound before Haywood Lane. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Matt Murphy, and this is the Matt Murphy Radio Show. Thank you for being with us on this Tuesday edition. We've got another hour to go. We hope to make it a good one. Whatever you might be doing, perhaps you're still at your place of business. Maybe you're in your home or in your automobile. We thank you for listening to the Matt Murphy Show and Super Talk 99.7 WTN. There's plenty of ways to do that. You can download any number of applications. I mean, you can download our own app at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You can go to iHeart, Spotify, TuneIn. You can also find us on Super Talk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. We invite you to be a part of the process. Also, All the Best Words, our brand new podcast with Cameron Smith and myself. 3 downloads per week, at least, maybe up to 4 at some point. So there's that going on the online side of things: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are many, many funny people in this listening audience, by the way.
What are they saying?
Well, they're saying that we were focused on the idea of saving the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway because it is a part of Nashville's history, Ken. And then we brought up the scrapyard, and there are several listeners that are indicating to me that, well, the scrapyard is a part of Nashville's history, too. And so now I've gotten several listeners that have hashtag save the scrapyard. Well, okay. I mean, I didn't think this was the hill we wanted to die on, but that's fine. 6902 says that's been a scrapyard for over 100 years. Well, okay.
Hard to argue with that history.
Well, it is hard to argue that history. Plus, if they start digging down there, they're going to find a lot of stuff that they probably don't want to find.
Actually, that'd be pretty cool if they did find stuff they don't want to find.
I kind of like that idea. Yeah, I mean, what's down there?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Exactly.
It's been a scrapyard for a long time. Hey, maybe that would keep Mike Wolf in town. Let him go over there and do some digging around. Have you heard about Mike Wolf leaving Weaver?
No.
Who's
Mike Wolf?
He's the
American Picker.
American Picker guy.
Oh, okay.
Mike
okay.
and Frank has sadly passed along.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes.
But Mike, I think do they still do the show?
I really don't know.
If y'all know,
I stopped watching.
If y'all know where Mike is, or if he's listening, let him know that we want to have him on the show before they close down Antique Archaeology. They're closing down their shop over there at the Marathon Works. Ken, they had that they had opened the shop 10, 12, 14 years ago, something like that.
Oh wow, boy, I'm out of the loop.
And apparently they've decided to shut it down, and I believe the last day is this Saturday, Sunday, something like that.
I think it's this weekend.
I mean, I think it's pretty soon.
Yeah.
Save the scrapyard.
Save the scrapyard. Tell Mike Wolf to get over there and start digging around.
Let's see how you say that in Portuguese.
And then there's this. 9900 swears that this is true, and who am I to disagree? According to a loyal listener of the Matt Murphy Show and Super Talk, the first ever airplane that took off and landed at night did so at the Nashville Fairgrounds. That's what 9900 says.
Okay.
I have not fact-checked this, but he said, I'm talking about the first ever June 22nd, 1910. Metro doesn't want you to know about that either. It landed and took off on land encompassing the dog playground and part of the racetrack where you pit just outside of the track tunnel. This took place during the Tennessee State Fair, which was another historic thing Nashville government peed away. He didn't say peed away. I kind of cleaned that up a little bit. Yeah, I don't.
1910?
That's
wow.
First ever night flight.
Wright brothers had just gotten off the ground.
Yeah, I
not too
know.
long before that.
Just a couple of years before then.
That's back when the scrapyard was just getting up and running.
Get rid of that scrapyard and put a casino there, says 9368. I would be in favor. And 9832 says he's got some type of shop. It's my understanding that Mr. Mike Wolf owns property in Columbia, Tennessee. That's what I am told. I don't know. I would love to have him on the show. I would love to pick his brain, no pun intended, about how all of that show got started. So if y'all know where Mike Wolf is, tell him Matt Murphy is desperate to get an interview with him before he closes up shop for the final time at Antique Archaeology this coming Saturday or Sunday, whenever it is. Friends, it's 11 minutes past the hour. It's time for Nincompoops in the News.
Nincompoops
and I got to tell you,
in the news.
I have found a nincompoop story. We've done a lot of raucous nincompoop stories. I have found a nincompoop story that I'm hesitant to share with y'all.
Ooh.
That is how good it is.
Wow.
Yeah, ramping up the suspense.
It is bawdy.
Bawdy?
Bawdy. B-A-W-D-Y.
Well, I got to see how to say that in Portuguese.
I'm going to hesitate. I'm going to consider whether or not to tell my story, so I'm going to go at least second, if not last. But I'll let Mr. Weber go first.
All right, mine's just a simple tale right up the road in Kentucky. According to the arrest citation, deputies with the Wayne County Sheriff's Office responded to a report of a nude man walking along a Kentucky road.
Yes, sir.
Well, they located Mr. James K. King, who told deputies he was, quote, going to get some pants.
Well, that's good.
Respect the honesty.
Yeah.
Officer said he appeared to be under the influence of a controlled substance and became disorderly, repeatedly kicking the door of the patrol car while being taken to jail. He is charged with indecent exposure, public intoxication, and disorderly conduct. He was also arrested on 6 outstanding Wayne County District Court warrants, which include multiple counts of contempt of court, failure to appear, public intoxication, criminal trespassing, and possession of drug paraphernalia. Court records show that King left a rehab facility on an agreed order related to several of the underlying charges. Apparently, the rehab facility did not stick, as he still appears to be on some sort of controlled substances, but he was going to get some pants.
He was looking for some pants. I mean, he's trying to get right.
He searched all over at home and could not find any, so he thought he'd venture out.
Couldn't locate any britches. Any indication in the story whether he had underpants on?
It said he was naked.
Oh, well, there you go. There you have it. Ken Weaver, I'm a little disappointed in you. You haven't found that story before, Chris Weber, but there you go.
That is the exact story I was going to do.
Is it really?
Yes, it is.
Well,
now I'm scrambling to find another one.
Well, I'll do mine then. Save the scrapyard. Okay. I'm going to have to navigate this story carefully.
Wow. All right.
The OnlyFans model, that's where we start, who was recently arrested for spraying her urine on more than $1,500 worth of merchandise at a New Hampshire grocery store, has been hit with 5 more criminal counts for what is alleged to be a, quote, pee spree at a local motel.
Goodness.
You see where my dilemma was?
Yeah.
In a series of criminal mischief complaints filed April 14th, Kelly Tedford, 24, has been accused of damaging an assortment of items at a Marriott in Keene. Investigators allege that Tedford, who uses the handle Kinky Kelly on OnlyFans, went number 1 in a hotel room's air conditioner unit.
Oh, come on.
Oh, man.
And went on to relieve herself on the blanket and curtains.
Goodness. What's she doing? Wow. Drinking a gallon of tea?
She is also charged with doing the big job. And placing it in the toilet tank, a frat boy favorite known as an upper decker.
Goodness. What in the world are they teaching these kids in school?
At the same time, the new misdemeanor counts were being filed. Tedford was named in an indictment charging her with felony criminal mischief for allegedly contaminating items at a Monadnock food co-op in Keene. Her alleged targeting of the grocery store resulted in the business suffering losses in excess of $1,500 in destroyed merchandise as well as cleaning costs. Investigators contend that Tedford recorded her vile antics for her $15 a month OnlyFans page, which, before you ask, has been deactivated.
That's a shame.
I don't know from personal experience, just from reading the story. Tedford's Kinky Kelly page described her as a submissive pixie who is kink friendly.
Goodness.
You don't say.
I hope she gets friendly with the local authorities at the local jail, because it seems like that's where she will be spending some of her time.
I want to put some diapers on her.
And
Yes,
so that's my nincompoop in the news.
Poop. Something wrong with people.
What do they call that? A double decker?
Upper decker.
An upper
decker.
Yeah.
Goodness. I ain't even got a name for it.
You flush and it gets worse.
Yeah, that's the idea, right?
Goodness.
Weaver, do you want to go at all, or you want to just...
I found one.
All right, let's do it.
Nude man arrested on New Hampshire highway. What? This happened just the other day, Sunday, in fact. Police arrested a New Hampshire man who they say ran naked from a crash. New Hampshire troopers said they got multiple calls Sunday afternoon. There's a naked man in the travel lane. Route 16 in Dover. Police arrested the man. They say he was taken to the hospital for minor injuries from the crash. What's weird is he apparently, before he ran across the highway, that's when he took his clothes off.
Oh, well.
Yeah,
Makes
got in the
sense,
crash,
As you
exited
do.
the car, took off his clothes, then ran across the highway.
I'm on fire! I'm on fire! Like Ricky Bobby.
Faces multiple charges: indecent exposure, lewdness, reckless conduct, disorderly conduct. They filed a separate charge, and I don't know what the separate charge is for. Maybe something to do with the crash. But here's the key part of the story. You want to know what this fella's name is?
What's that?
35-year-old Sean Wiener.
Of course it is.
You got to love it when naked drunk people and their last name is Wiener.
Well, you do.
Not even if they're drunk.
Wonder if he's ever done an upper decker.
An upper decker.
Hashtag save the scrapyard. That's how we play Nincompoops in the news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You get to vote. 2433 says, before deactivating her account, they should arrest all of her followers, too.
I'm telling you.
That's the truth.
Goodness.
Oh, how can you possibly argue about the value of a college education after that? That is the truth. You may vote, 615-737-9986. There are some good things going on in the city of Nashville, and we'll talk about a few of those good things, to include an update on the new stadium improvements and what's about to happen at Bridgestone Arena. That's on the way. Plus, Donald Trump's coming to the South again, not to the state of Tennessee, but to our neighbor to the South at the University of Alabama. I'll tell you why in just a moment. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy for Jeff Eddy's Efficient Heating and Cooling. And Jeff wants you to know, summertime in the state of Tennessee, it's a hard season on your cooling system. If anything's going to break down or go wrong, it's going to happen likely during the summer months. This is why summer maintenance on your unit is so important. Catch those issues in the spring before they happen in the summer. And with Efficient, you get their maintenance guarantee. This means if they come back out for a repair during the same heating or cooling season after they've done maintenance on your unit, the service charge is completely waived. That's right, you heard me correctly. Free. Get your maintenance scheduled now at Efficient. Heating and Cooling. 615-724-4424. That's 724-4424 for Efficient Heating and Cooling. Go to efficienthvac.net. That's efficienthvac.net. Call Jeff Eddy if your heater's not ready or your AC's not ready. Efficient Heating and Cooling. Hey, friends, Matt Murphy here for Grace Point Healthcare. Friends, Grace Point Healthcare is a direct pay system. Why is this important to you? Because it's less expensive than other systems, right? And as a primary care provider, you know exactly what you're going to pay, exactly what you need up front without any surprises on the back end. Plus, insurance companies ought not to be in the way, standing between you and your primary care provider, your doctor. That's why they don't let it happen at Grace Point Healthcare. Plus, talking about inexpensive, for $69 a month, you can be a part of the basic Smart Care plan. That includes free office visits and free basic labs and diagnostic testing. Never long wait times at Grace Point Healthcare either. As your primary care provider, they can treat you, they can treat your entire family. Call 599-6868 to schedule your next appointment. That's 599-6868, and talk to the doctors at Grace Point Healthcare about the advantages of direct pay. I tell you, you really can't afford exceptional medicine at your convenience with Grace Point Healthcare. It's why they say they're modern medicine in the heart of Franklin, delivered the old-fashioned way. Thank you, Ken Weaver. 24 minutes after the hour, we'll get to a former presidential candidate speaking out about the current president of the United States of America. That would be Tennessee's own Al Gore, talking about Donald J. That's coming up in just a moment or two. Speaking of Donald J. Trump, he announced that he would be heading to the University of Alabama to offer a commencement address. That commencement address happening a little bit later on this year. The college Democrats have responded in a way that you might think consistent with college Democrats on our college campuses around the United States of America, and I have that response. But that's right. President Donald Trump announcing that he will be delivering the commencement address at the University of Alabama. That's big news. University of Alabama says that they are honored that President Donald Trump will deliver a historic commencement address. confirming today that President Donald Trump delivering that spring commencement on the evening of Thursday, May 1st at Coleman Coliseum. According to the official statement, the University of Alabama is honored to have been selected as one of the universities President Donald J. Trump will deliver a spring commencement address to. The ticketed event will be held the evening of Thursday, May 1 at Coleman Coliseum. That's just in 8 days or so. And will be open to all spring 2025 graduates. Of course, like Trump's visit to Tuscaloosa in September for the Alabama-Georgia game, his return to the University of Alabama expected to draw national attention. It's already gotten attention from the college Democrats. Here's their statement. You know, Democrats can't handle... You would think that Donald Trump was like appointed president of the United States. You would think that these same people that scream about democracy dying in darkness, I mean, they claim to love democracy until they get themselves a taste of it. They claim to love the democratic process until they get them a little taste of that democracy. And when they get a little taste of that democracy and it doesn't taste like they thought it should, suddenly they want to spit it out. I thought y'all liked democracy. I thought y'all liked people getting to vote for a president of their choosing, which is exactly what happened last November. But all I hear is moaning and complaining and you know whating about it. Here's the statement. University of Alabama College Democrats is shocked and disgusted to learn that our unpopular, divisive, and authoritarian president will be involved in commencement for the graduating class of 2025. And then this is in bold. This insult will not go unanswered. The last time the disgraced criminal visited campus, he was able to turn the Alabama-Georgia game, the biggest college football game on our campus in years, into a political sideshow. We cannot allow this to happen with our commencement ceremonies. For all of his meddling in UA affairs, Donald Trump lost our campus to former Vice President Kamala Harris last semester. UA is not a fascist playground. That's the University of Alabama Democrats making a strong statement there about the plan for Donald J. Trump to attend the University of Alabama commencement ceremonies. Well, good for them. Bully for y'all. I hope that you have a strong answer for Donald Trump attending the ceremonies, stronger than that weak-ass statement that you just made that I just read. Speaking of weak statements, here's Al Gore.
In mind, I want to note that before I use what is not a precedent, I understand very well why it is wrong to compare Adolf Hitler's Third Reich to any other movement. It was uniquely evil, full stop. I get it.
So there's Al Gore. Now, pardon the audio. It's a little bit difficult to understand, but I wanted to give you the full clip, which spans about 2 minutes. But in the first 15, 20 seconds, Al Gore tells us, hey, don't compare anybody else to Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler was uniquely evil, full stop. Then Al Gore totally compares someone else to Adolf Hitler.
But there are important lessons from the history of that emergent evil. And
so do not compare anyone to Adolf Hitler. It's wrong. It's not. It's not possible. There is no evil to comprehend as fully and as evil as the Third Reich. But if I got a knock on the head,
here is one that I regard as essential. In the immediate aftermath of World War II, a small group of philosophers who had escaped Hitler's murderous regime returned to Germany and performed a kind of moral autopsy on the Third Reich. The most famous of the so-called Frankfurt School of philosophers was a man named Jürgen Habermas, best known, I would say, but it was Habermas's mentor, Theodor Adorno, who wrote that the first step in that nation's descent into hell was, and I quote, the conversion of all questions of truth into questions of power. He described how the Nazis, and I quote again, attacked the very heart of the distinction between true and false.
Really? That's kind of like claiming that if we don't do something about global warming in the next 10 years, that the planet will cease to exist as we know it. Kind of like that. Kind of like people who never get called out on their lies and misinformation. How people who claim that they know better with regard to the scientific data and material going on around us as to what is going to happen, and they say that it is empirically true that you will see global warming to the point that man cannot return from it by 2017. I think that was the date that Al used. Yet that didn't happen, Al. You were wrong, and you've never apologized for it. More on Albert Gore Jr. coming up in a moment. It's the bottom of the hour, 6:30 on Super Talk. You know, obviously, if you have foundation issues, if you have repair that needs to be done on your foundation, or if you have waterproofing problems, you know who to call. You know to call USS, United Structural systems. But I don't talk enough about the concrete leveling that's available at USS. It is an incredible system. It's called the Polylift system, which is less expensive than total concrete replacement. If you have settling sidewalks or driveways, sinking slabs or patio steps, if your porch steps are tilted, if your sidewalk or patio has shifted, if it's causing a trip hazard, let's get this fixed with the Polylift system at USS. No color change in your concrete, no damage to your grass or your landscaping, just completed work at a lower price than you're going to pay for concrete replacement. It's available at USS. United Structural Systems. They've been keeping homes stable and dry since 1994 with 30,000 satisfied customers in their bank. I mean, let me tell you, folks, that is a lot of testimonials as to the good work done by USS. Go to USSTN.com, USSTN.com, or call 615-488-7855, 488-7855 for USS. Hey, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is the Matt Murphy Show until 7 o'clock. We'll hand off to the great one, Mark Levin, at that time. It is a lot of live and local conversation with Dan Mandis in the morning, starting early at 5 a.m., then Chris Hand, then Chad Benson, then yours truly, Matt Murphy, until 7 o'clock, and we'll crank it up all tomorrow at 5 a.m. Before we go, please don't refer to Spotted Al as Tennessee's own anymore, writes 2433. We officially disowned him in the 2000 election. I do it because I know that it probably chafes a lot of hide around these parts. But I do thank you. If you were in the state of Tennessee in 2000, I think all of America owes you a debt of gratitude because you could have easily voted for your own guy, but you saw through him better than we did. You knew him better than we did. And thankfully, because of if Tennessee votes for Al Gore in 2020 or 2000 rather, 2000, it's over for George W. Bush. He doesn't win, but thankfully that did not happen. So we do appreciate all of you. I suppose that I should finish up his comments. He's, yet another comparison.
End quote. The Trump administration is insisting on trying to create their own preferred version of reality. They say Ukraine attacked Russia instead of the other way around, and expect us to believe it. At home, they attack heroes who have defended our nation in war and against cyber attacks as traitors.
Who's he talking about there? Can't figure that out.
They say the climate crisis is a hoax invented by the Chinese to destroy American manufacturing.
That's probably true.
They say coal is clean. They say wind turbines cause cancer. They say sea level rise just creates more beachfront property.
Have the coastlines changed at all since Al Gore declared the hockey stick graph to be a reality in 2005 and 2006? Al Gore said, and this is not a misquote, this is not a mischaracterization. He said that we were going to have to change the hurricane designation system because hurricanes in the next 5 to 10 years were going to be so powerful that the current designation system would be inadequate to measure the hurricane's power. Now, I'm not suggesting that hurricanes aren't powerful things. I would suggest to you that without hurricanes, that the earth would not be what we believe it to be. Hurricanes are necessary to blow off steam on planet Earth, a natural part of our weather patterns and weather cycles that have nothing to do with man-made activity, though Al would want you to believe otherwise. So Al Gore says, don't compare anybody to the Nazis, but Donald Trump's a lot like the Nazis when it comes to climate change. He delivered that speech a little earlier today in celebration of Earth Day. Way to go, Al. Al Gore is a very, very bitter man because Al Gore continues to be in disbelief that he lost to George W. Bush. Once again, thank you to the state of Tennessee. A progressive prosecutor is declining to charge a Minnesota state employee after he was caught on camera allegedly causing an estimated $20,000 worth of damage to Tesla vehicles. This in a protest of Elon Musk. Liberals are so dumb. They are attacking the owners of Tesla vehicles. They are not attacking Elon Musk. Elon Musk does not take a hit when you attack a Tesla vehicle that has already been sold. The Hennepin County Attorney's Office is seeking diversion for Minnesota Department of Human Service employee Dylan Adams. That's right. An employee of Governor Tim Walz is getting a pass after he allegedly vandalized at least 6 Teslas in Minneapolis while walking his dog. The DA's office told CBS News this is an approach taken in many property crimes. It helps to ensure the individual keeps their job and can pay restitution, as well as reducing the likelihood of repeat offenders. If the vandalism continues, the county attorney's office would not rule out charges. Progressive County Attorney Mary Moriarty took office in 2023, faced criticism for her soft-on-crime approach. On several occasions, Moriarty has shown leniency to violent criminals, including suspects charged with murder and sexual assault, leading to disputes with prosecutors and outright outrage amongst victims' families. The Minneapolis Police Department blasted the county attorney's office for its refusal to pursue charges against the Tesla vandal. In other words, does anyone believe if the roles were reversed and this were a quote-unquote right-winger attacking some installation that has to do with Joe Biden and his presidency, that the Minneapolis Police Department would take a soft-on-crime approach? Of course you don't believe it, because of course it would not happen that way. In the meantime, closer to home, in the state of Tennessee, birth control, including emergency contraception and fertility care, such as in vitro fertilization, remains legal. House Bill 533 codifies the protection for women's access to birth control and fertility care. It does not permit or legalize anything that's not already legal in the state of Tennessee. However, after squeaking through on a contentious vote, 11 House Republicans in the Tennessee House of Representatives and various conservative groups are now asking Governor Bill Lee to block this bill, HB 533, that would codify in vitro fertilization, saying that it would give an opportunity for groups that are against religious liberty and the protection of innocent human life the chance to attack Tennessee's law protecting the unborn. In an April 16th letter led by Representative Chris Todd, who will make an appearance on the Matt Murphy Show tomorrow at 3:35, a faction of Republicans denounced the bill as a, quote, Trojan horse that could potentially undermine Tennessee's strong religious stance on the protection of human life. Lee, in his 7 years in office, has never issued a veto, opting instead to allow bills he objects to become law without his signature. His office confirmed receipt of the letter to the Tennessean, but noted the bill has not yet reached the governor's desk. As I stated earlier in the week, this bill, House Bill 533, was a solution in search of a problem. In vitro fertilization was not a problem in the state of Tennessee, but what does happen is the manner in which in vitro fertilization occurs, there are multiple eggs fertilized in the given process. It's my understanding, and the understanding as to how this works is that once a couple gets pregnant through in vitro fertilization, oftentimes the remainder of the fertilized eggs are at some point in the process destroyed at the desire of the couple that created them. This is technically against Tennessee law. For those that don't know it, under Tennessee law, life is protected and life begins at the point of conception, or at least at the point of, I should be more technical here, at the point of fertilization. So by codifying IVF, House Bill 533 is at odds with our protection of unborn life in the state of Tennessee. Some are suggesting that groups that want to dig into our protection of unborn life and somehow chip away from that protection would use 533 as a mechanism to get in court. And in order to do so, Representative Chris Todd, tomorrow on the show, will speak to this matter. I don't know why it was so important, considering that IVF is not a problem right now in the state of Tennessee. I don't know why it was so important to get this done, but it does create an issue that the legislature very likely is going to have to address. In the meantime, just an update, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security that led by former Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas under the Biden administration reportedly declined to respond to the scene in late 2022 when law enforcement stopped a vehicle driven by Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Salvadorian national that has been deported by the Trump administration. Tennessee Highway Patrol told the Tennessee Star, who's done great reporting on this story, great reporting by Michael Patrick Leahy and his group, last week that the officers with the agency detained Abrego Garcia for nearly 2 hours, and during that time, he presented an expired Maryland driver's license that permits immigrants to drive within the state. It was discovered that he was transporting 8 passengers, none of whom had luggage. It was believed that he was trafficking human beings. According to the Tennessee Highway Patrol, per standard protocol, they contacted federal law enforcement authorities, and the Biden-era FBI, the agency of jurisdiction, made the decision not to detain them and informed the Tennessee Highway Patrol they were to release them. Another example of a soft-on-crime approach that Joe Biden and his administration took with illegal aliens around the country during his administration. Sadly, those chickens have come home to roost. The Supreme Court earlier today, I'm just running down a couple of stories that we were unable to get to. The Supreme Court earlier today heard oral arguments and seemed likely to allow religious families to opt out of story time of an LGBTQ variety. The lawsuit over public school story time with titles like Uncle Bobby's Wedding. Y'all kids, sit down. Uncle Bobby's got to tell y'all something.
It was my 3rd wedding.
Uncle Bobby is in love. I want you to meet your new uncle.
His name is also Uncle Bobby.
No, Uncle Bobby. Uncle Bobby's. I gotta look up Uncle Bobby's wedding and read it. The Supreme Court appeared poised. Take this with a grain of salt because you never know how the courts are going to go. But they appeared poised to side with a group of religious parents seeking to pull their children from public school lessons with LGBTQ-themed books. Why in the world liberals are so obsessed with over-sexualizing our children is beyond me, but they certainly are. The lawsuit over story time and books with titles such as Uncle Bobby's Wedding and Love, Violet is one of three major religious rights cases on the Supreme Court docket this term. At issue for the justices whether public schools in Montgomery County, Maryland, can illegally burden the First Amendment rights of parents to freely exercise their religious beliefs when they require children to participate in discussions that touch on sexuality and gender conformity that conflict with their faith. Obviously, this is not something that the public school system should be doing, and thankfully, the courts will see fit to dismiss the. They'll agree with the plaintiffs in the lawsuit, obviously. I have no doubt that the court will get this one right. It is 9 until the top of the hour. Quick timeout. Back in a moment on Super Talk. Well, friends, Tennessee Men's Clinic is here when you need them, and you may need them sooner rather than later. Gentlemen, there's no shame in this statistic, but it is a fact that about half the men listening to me right now will have some level of testosterone loss over the course of their lives that affect them. Now, how that affects you, it can potentially affect you in bedroom activity. But why in the world would you just accept that and move on with your life, especially with the technologies that we have available to us, naturally occurring technologies that they can talk to you about at the Tennessee Men's Clinic. Their qualified urologist will sit down with you. And when I talk about technologies, I'm talking about techniques and methods. I'm talking about getting your testosterone levels back up to where they used to be, naturally occurring in the body. I'm talking about getting you back to life again, whether it's gains at the gym or performing in the yard or performing in the bedroom. Let's get back to life, men. You can contact the Tennessee Men's Clinic at the same number, either for their Franklin location or Midtown location, at 615-208-9090. 208-9090 for our friends at the Tennessee Men's Clinic, online at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. Hello, friends. Matt Murphy for Defend Systems, a life safety and security consultation firm specializing in physical security consultation and active violence mitigation training. Their clients include schools and corporations, healthcare facilities, law firms, manufacturing facilities, corporate headquarters, and so much more. As a matter of fact, any place that people gather, if you're a decision maker, you need to call Brink Fiddler and Defend Systems. He can assist you. They've trained multiple Middle Tennessee schools. If your child's school has not received training yet, you need this level of training. They can provide custom protection solutions unique to your particular location and unique to whatever security issue you might have, including rapid response medical, emergency and intruder action plan, security improvement consultation, all customized to your facility. Here's the bottom line, folks. Hope is not a plan. It is time to get trained in a dangerous world. Do so with Defend Systems. Go to defendsystems.com. That's defendsystems.com, or reach out today at 615-236-6484, 236-6484 for Defend Systems. One of my favorite, most recent additions to what we do on a day-to-day basis, we try to entertain you for a few hours, make the ride home a little better and whatnot. I mean, that's what we do. One of my favorite additions is the Super Text line because it gives you the ability to respond in real time to what's going on the radio show without having to wait online. Or, many of you would never dream of calling a radio show, but you're willing to reach out via the Super Text line, and it's the same number, 615-737-9986. I just received this message, and it delights me. And I'm going to read it to Chris Webber and tell me if you can figure out why this message delights me so much.
Okay.
You bleep and bleepers are killing me. In order of 99.7 WTN radio personalities that I want to hang out with is as follows. All of you have to wait because I'm pretty awesome myself. I don't know why we're digressing. But I would have to say I start with Ken Weaver. He makes me cry. He's so funny. Person number 2 would probably be Mr. Headless Bell. Then there's a tie between Chris Hand and Matt Murphy. Then, of course, all the rest. Chris Webber, Brian Wilson, Joan Jones, they're hilarious. Chad Benson. Joan calls balls and strikes. She's from Jersey, Philly. I don't want to get whacked by the mob, if you know what I mean. If you don't like that list that I just posted, go cry to your mama. Because we're in Real-Town USA, go Trump. Why did that message delight me so much?
There was no mention of Dan Mandis. Everybody else got a shout out.
Do you understand? And I am trusting that the man's asleep right now because I would not. Do you understand what would happen if he read that tomorrow?
Oh, he'd be traumatized.
It would destroy him.
Yeah.
99.44, it would destroy him. Don't tell him. I did it. I threw Chad in there just to mess with Dan if he was listening. Miss Chad too, but 0152 says excellent show, great interview with Courtney. No, Courtney was great. She was fabulous on her own. On tomorrow's broadcast, don't forget we've got a representative to talk to us about this IVF legislation and his concerns about it. Here, I'll leave you with this: the House GOP, their election arm, they're offering to foot the bill for any future Democrat lawmakers that want to take a trip to El Salvador. I think this is brilliant.
Very nice.
That's very nice. Multiple progressive lawmakers traveled there in protest of the Trump administration and his deportation policy. The National Republican Congressional Committee made a public offering yesterday. They said the only caveat is that any takers have to provide real-time video evidence of their visit so that they can broadcast it nationwide. If out-of-touch House Democrats are so desperate to cozy up with violent gang members, the least they can do is allow Americans to watch the show, according to the National Republican congressional committee. Good for them. That's smart. That's brilliant, as a matter of fact. That does it for us. Mark Levin is up next. We'll be back tomorrow with a full broadcast. Don't forget to start with Dan Mandis in the morning, Chris Hand after Dan, Chad Benson after Chris, and then yours truly starting at 3. Until then, for Chris Weber, for Ken Weaver, thank you for listening, folks. Have a great evening. Hug your loved ones. So long, everybody.